धागे न तिनक धिन 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 धागे न तिनक धिन.
Every day I wake, I make my mind up. I'ma be the one, be the truth, be the way. Yeah. Every day I wake, I make my mind up. Gotta keep my mind on the because they only telling their side of the story. Out here telling lies like they on Morid and porridge. Kids get their money off on it. But down here in the hood, yeah, we know Forex. We growing up, yeah. We got the good. Good of them assets, good of my bag. Get rid of cash before the whole market crash. A news flash, just a flash from the past. We on the smash, be prepared to hit the gas, yeah.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, switch your game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher, yeah. Sharing no vodka from Virginia, yeah.
I know I'm more because I'm blessed. I know I'm more. I passed the test.
We got to see with the true eyes. We need some brand new bright ideas. We got the hearts and some great minds, yeah. If we could all just be sincere.
Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, switch the game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel.
Try.
Blood eye, and we travel.
Woo. That's my child. Woo.
Blood eye, and we travel. Build a land, get the wealth, change your name up. Get the title in your hands, switch the game up. Melanation, elevation, arise. We divide, blood eye, and we travel. Hey, hey, hit him with the higher, yeah.
Black leaves in the Mississippi River. Black leaves in the Mississippi fire. Black leaves in the Mississippi choir. Black leaves on the Mississippi land. And we've got and cotton, we've got sons and daughters, we've got grit and glory, we've got mama stories, we've got strength like towers, we've got hope and power.
God made woman with an iron hand, raised her up on heaven's land. God made woman with an iron hand, raised her up on heaven's land.
Strength like towers, we got hope and power.
God made woman with an iron hand, raised her up on heaven's land.
could take quite a bit of time.
Pardon my autonomy. I know one day they'll honor me. This ain't pertaining to 28 Deuteronomy. Self-determination, controlling our situation. Ain't no more indoctrination from pale faces. How the fuck you bummy and broke but a pair of races? My lineage free people of color with a left make each nigga. This right here maroon, now it ain't burgundy. If you plotting murder, I'm certain that you'll need surgery. Hurt from when the burner squeeze. Protecting tribe business. Only consulting with governments tried to tribe with it. Please don't confuse us with those considered native. Semi-autonomy never was in our nature. Just address me as Esther Lucy. Wild Indian status and Cherokees riding Ruchis. In my war bonnet, if you want it, bring it to your region. And black forces the same color the European. Pardon my autonomy. I know one day they'll honor me. This ain't pertaining to 28 Deuteronomy. Self-determination, controlling our situation. Ain't no more indoctrination from pale faces.
Aborigines, which means what? Black folk. But you never find a white aborigine. Aborigines are called natives, or they're always dark-skinned people. You and I are aborigines, but you don't like to be called an aborigine.
Peace to the party. It's your homeboy back again with the news. Hey, we got a special one for y'all today, y'all. So we talking about who is the better candidate for Black America. This is the great debate. So we had the backstory behind this is we had a couple brothers say that they want to talk about the different candidates and who's really better for Black America. So you know how we do over here at the Autonomous Party. It just made sense for us to have this conversation. We got to do it live in front of the people, and we're going to really talk about it today. So as we go along, you know, later on into the conversation, if you want to tap in, even if you want to come and join the panel, we're willing to do so later on, but you can always drop your questions. All right, so first off, let me go and see if Mac ready. Go and pull him up, and we're going to get it going. So let me see. Mac, put your camera on. Let me know when you're ready, bro. Meanwhile, hold on, I think I got him. Let's see.
Let's do it.
What's up with it?
What they do? Peace to the party, Maranatha. Yeah.
So I let them know what the backstory is, man. So, you know, we can go ahead and roll off you. If you want to go ahead and introduce, I guess, and then, you know, we can go from there, bro.
Is it my dog there, though?
Yeah, oh yeah. I see two. Okay. I see two people.
All right, so Miss Angela, she pulled up yet?
I don't think so.
Miss Angela, check your link. I know she might be in the chat, so we wanted to have a lady on the panel. I don't want this to be nothing just but men. You heard me?
For sure.
Because this is politics in America today. She the elder too for all y'all out there. She older than all of us men on the panel, so let's be respectful. At the same time, yeah, my man B, you know, I've known him for a long time, and you know, we've been talking about politics for a while now, from 4 years, even in our conversations of things from the last election. So, but this election, obviously, I see things following up, and we disagreed to agree about certain parts. But obviously, he stands on, obviously, you know, and I'm gonna let him speak for himself, because I ain't here to tell people what he thinks, you know what I mean? But my man does a lot of things in my community. We have a relationship, you know what I mean, locally in Fort Lauderdale, Broward County. Business-wise, obviously, just from after that, bumping into each other locally and what we know. And I respect him, man. So he's intelligent, man. I want to have him. Can you bring him up? Let's get my man B on stage, Brandon.
All right, 1 second. I'm trying to send this link to Miss Angela too. Hold on, bring him up.
What's up, B?
What's happening, man? How you doing, brother?
How you doing? You all right?
I'm good. I'm good. What's your partner name, man? I want to address him properly, brother. What's your
Monte.
Monte.
What's up with you,
How
bro?
doing, brother?
Ain't nothing, man.
Okay, that's what's
Appreciate you for joining us. I'm trying to send this link real
y'all
quick.
for having me, man. You know, black men politicking is what we need to be doing, whether we agree or disagree. So I'm
For sure.
Exactly.
Hey, B, and
What's
I
up?
want people to know because you've been invited actually on this platform prior to this political thing. And that's why I want to make sure, that didn't happen. If you don't mind, what you got popping locally, you do some positive things. As my brother, I got to say that. And I respect you for that. And you've gone to historical black schools in this area and everything. So I'm not, just going against none of those things I know you stand on. You hear me?
Oh, no, absolutely. And I appreciate you. Yeah. So I have an organization by the name of Positivity Pays. And just long story short, what I've seen in the community is a lot of black people ain't doing nothing with black people or for black people in the community. And I knew that wasn't true because I was out there doing it with black people. And oftentimes it's just not seen because some of us are raised with a real Southern Baptist, or let I say conservative mindset to not toot your own horn when you out here doing good in the community. But that's problematic when we have other folks that are just saying they're incredible when they aren't doing things, and they're always in the press being able to get accolades and things of that nature. And they look like they're the champions of the community and the world's greatest people while we sit being quiet and doing incredible things. So I was seeing that. And so because I was seeing that the people that needed credit wasn't getting it, me and my partner created children's books and comic books to celebrate those in our community, to give us some representation. And then we also started creating trading cards to do the very same thing. And so I thought it was important to make sure that the people in the community, the activists, the teachers, those that were mentoring our youth and making sure that they had the history and the information they needed were getting the proper credit that they deserve. And so we continue to do that. And literacy is the foundation of what we do, first and foremost. And that starts with foundational literacy. We go to media literacy, financial literacy. And now because we're in this AI age, we're in digital literacy at this point. So we got 4 pillars of our program. And it's been doing some incredible things and getting the attentions of politicians and principals alike. So, yeah.
Yeah, like I said, man, I don't disagree with nothing you do in the community, man. You've been doing a lot of great things in the community. So, that's why before this conversation gets started, some people might think because we agree to disagree about certain part, though. You know what I mean? Politically,
we can't respect the other end of it, right?
Yeah, like I don't want nobody thinking that goes without. You know what I mean? And some people might not lead with that first. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's the dynamics. Even when you look back at like the time frame of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and other people in those communities that might have agreed to disagree and had the best interest of what we call black folk at that time, right? But still might have had different positions on how they looked at it because of their whatever position they might be politically, in that manner. So I want to make sure I say that. And you invited another guest. Is he here, Monte?
I see a MJ.
Yeah, that's Mark Joseph. Yeah.
All right, you can pull him up too. You know what I mean?
I'm about to bring you up now, bro.
I'll let you introduce him, B. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so this is my brother, Mark Joseph, one of the most intelligent brothers I know.
Okay.
Him and I have, continued throughout the years to have political conversations. There have been times that I've been to the left of issues of him and him being to the left of issues of me. And that's what creates what we need in our community, which is improvement and iron sharpening iron. And so, he's a brother that's a FAMU grad, is in the finance and just an incredible brother. And I thought, if anybody else was going to come on the pod with me, I definitely wanted it to be him.
That's what's up.
He's an astute mind. So, Mark Joseph.
How you doing, Mark? Can you hear us?
Respect,
Peace
man.
to you, bro.
Respect to y'all brothers, man. Respect what y'all doing. Respect the work being put in, man. And man, I'm all about the positivity. All about putting the good word out and getting some good feedback, get some good conversation going about these issues that impact all of us. All of us.
Definitely.
It's critical.
And I'm sitting here now, Mac. I'm trying to Miss Angela having technical difficulties, so I'm trying to help her walk through it. But we can you can see it in Telegram though, bro. But we can keep walking until because it's something with a computer.
I see it too now. I see that. Yeah, I'm looking at it too. We're gonna still represent. If she gets on, she always is welcome. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I have to give her a shout out because, you know, sometimes we don't let women get into the conversation that are very educated about things tied to Black people, specifically dealing with especially political things that I know she has covered, you know what I mean? And I don't want to make nobody think that this is just a male conversation, you know what I mean? Because all of us as Americans, as they were called, tied to humanity, are impacted by the decisions that we are making within the construct of being called Americans, you know what I mean? Foreign or national, or whatever position you might think of, tribally, indigenously. We got a lot of people that tap in here. So for y'all that, shout out to B and Mark, you know, we're talking to a lot of different people that's going to listen to this after the fact, that's live in their positions, you know what I'm saying? So I don't want y'all thinking we being biased, but we're definitely talking to people who will be labeled and understand that they will be labeled Black in America today. So in the situation of the topic of the concept, Monte, you want to start this off so we can get into it?
Yeah.
So we can get into, just to start the dialogue off between us on this floor until, if Miss Angela hopefully can get on, we're gonna play this video, and then B and then Mark, I would like y'all feedback from the video, and then we got we got a couple of joints, right? Mm-hmm. We want y'all feedback from what you're hearing these people saying, from beyond any of us speaking, your feedback and our feedback, and then after that we're gonna go into certain points of views and concepts that everybody has. Is that okay with everybody that's on the panel tonight?
Absolutely.
All right, let's rock out. Hold on.
That's right.
Referring to as a bold decision to switch my party affiliation to the Republican Party. I wanted to take a moment to explain why I chose to become a Republican, and also to explain why I don't think it was a bold decision at all. It is the right decision, not only for me, but for all my brothers and sisters in the Black community. You see, in recent history, the Democrat Party has created the illusion that their agenda and their policies are what's best for Black people. Somehow it's been forgotten that the Republican Party was founded in 1854 as an abolitionist movement with one simple creed, that slavery is a violation of the rights of man. Frederick Douglass called Republicans the party of freedom and progress. And the first Republican president was Abraham Lincoln, the author of the Emancipation Proclamation. It was Republicans in Congress who authored the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, giving former slaves citizenship, voting rights, and due process of law. The Democrats, on the other hand, were the party of Jim Crow. It was Democrats who defended the rights of slave owners. It was the Republican President Dwight Eisenhower who championed the Civil Rights Act of 1957. But it was the Democrats in the Senate who filibustered the bill. You see, at the heart of liberalism is the idea that only a great and powerful big government can be the benefactor of social justice for all Americans. But the left is only concerned with one thing: control. And they disguise this control as charity. Programs such as welfare, food stamps, these programs aren't designed to lift Black Americans out of poverty. They were always intended as a mechanism for politicians to control the Black community. The idea that Blacks, or anyone for that matter, need the government to get ahead in life is despicable. And even more important, this idea is a failure. Our communities are just as poor as they have always been. Our schools continue to fail children. Our prisons are filled with young Black men who should be at home, being fathers. Our self-initiative and our self-reliance have been sacrificed in exchange for allegiance to our overseers, who control us by making us dependent on them. Sometimes I wonder if the word freedom is tossed around so frequently in our society that it has become a cliche. The idea of freedom is complex and it's all-encompassing. It's the idea that the economy must remain free of government persuasion. It's the idea that the press must operate without government intrusion. And it's the idea that the emails and phone records of Americans should remain free from government search and seizure. It's the idea that parents must be the decision makers in regards to their children's education, not some government bureaucrat. But most importantly, party. It is the idea that the individual must be free to pursue his or her own happiness, free from government dependence and free from government control. Because to be truly free is to be reliant on no one other than the author of our destiny. These are the ideas at the core of the Republican Party, and it is why I am a Republican. So my brothers and sisters of the American community, please join with me today in abandoning the government plantation and the party of disappointment, so that we may all echo the words of one Republican leader who famously said, "Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last."
Yeah, so Clip, so I want y'all feeling. I'm gonna let B, because you're my first guest and you invited him. I want y'all feedback on that, what the elder said. I'm gonna call him an elder because he ordered me and you.
Absolutely.
Panel, so,
and respect and blessings to the elder. I believe the elder gave us a historical account that is now seeming to be free of modern day changes. Yes, it is true that the Republican Party was the original party of Black folks and getting us from the shackles and the chains and to deal with oppression and things of that nature. And yes, it is true that during civil rights that there were more Republicans that were in favor of our civil rights, but we have to understand that the Southern strategy was implemented at that point in time, and now the parties have changed, and it's a very interesting dichotomy and dynamic that we continue to parrot this information without giving full context. So I respect the elder's decision to make that switch and that change, but it lacks complete and I would say now historical and more modern effects and things of that nature.
Okay, I want to say before I let Mark put his part in, is that only thing I look at the elder is saying, and like you said, in the evolution, and I get what you're saying, I agree, that things have changed within the party, you know what I mean, from the structure, right. evolution, right?
Right.
But in the position of, will you think that everybody it would be of his origin that would have his position that's labeled Black in America be? I want to ask you that before Mark answers.
Ask me the question again so I make sure I understand what you're saying.
All right, a person of his origin, let's say that he, like some people like to use in the Black political dichotomy, terms like ADOS, freedmen, you know what I mean, and, African American,
whatever
FB, you know what I'm talking about, the foundational people that would say they were here in North America prior to 1865, right? Let's just say that as a marker, politically speaking, for this conversation.
We're on the same playing field. Yeah, I got you.
Right. So those group of people that have that position in their origin, knowing that their heritage is literally tied to people of the Republican Party in their ancestry, right?
Sure.
Fighting for freedom of slavery tied to what he spoke about, which is not like a pseudo thing. It's a real thing. The people at that time were definitely doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So he's acknowledging that he knows that, just like a lot of us know, that a lot of our people switched over in this time period, like say 1920s. You know what I'm saying? To give
it began at that point in time.
Right, and how people started
FDR years, it started happening. Yeah.
Right. So in this time frame now, the 21st century, do you think that his position of going, as he said, what made him go back? Because he's actually acknowledging that from his ancestral and from his understanding, historical, like you said, that he went, his people and his family, basically, and him, went from their origins to Democratic, and now he's making a decision to go back. Did you catch that, or just me? Anybody?
No, I got you. He said he's making a decision to go back. Yeah, I caught it.
All right, Mark, I just want to make sure I put that in there. Mark, you can speak. I want to let you
put your word in. For sure. These are very common themes. Talk about the history of the, Democratic Party, being the party of the KKK. We understand this history, but we have to understand that Black people didn't just switch over because they liked the, a color of or a picture of a donkey. You know what I'm saying? There was actual policy that was implemented by Democrats that was way more in favor, way more in line with the upward economic and social push of Black people. You understand? And made Black people see that the Republican Party was not really on top of their game as far as the advancement of black people anymore. So when these policies started to be put in place, and this actually started, people always talk about the Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act. People talk about Kennedy and Johnson, but this started with Roosevelt. You know what I'm saying? Black people started to switch from then. You know, so you start to think about the New Deal, and just ways in which black people started to be incorporated into these administrations.
Even Truman desegregating the military. Like these are things that, black people felt like were in our favor. And this was during that time, we talking between the 20s and the 40s at this point, you know what I'm saying? And so we do understand the history.
I want to make sure everybody know that. That's all.
So let me ask you a question real quick. So us understanding it,
sure.
Do we agree that the history of the creation of either party is important?
Absolutely.
Okay.
As all of us being labeled black on this podcast.
Well, not even just that, just period. Do we agree that why something was started? Do we feel like that's important?
We do feel like it's important.
Okay. So the reason why I asked that is you say that you understand the history, which is just factual about certain things that we would consider that was beneficial for the progress of black people.
Yes.
So I think when they say like it got switched, like you brought up the Southern strategy, but the switch that we took on, like you brought up the New Deal, was that actually beneficial for us as a community?
Well, I think that many of these policies that were implemented by Roosevelt saw progress. Was it beneficial? Incrementally, yes, because many of these policies, you wouldn't get civil rights. You wouldn't get, civil rights in itself is a step by step approach. Every successive civil rights, when you start talking about Brown versus Board of Education, right? They pushed things a little bit further, not only in the American lexicon as far as people understanding of what's right and wrong as it relates to the relationship between black people and white people in America, but also, right, between just as black people having enough confidence to be able to step up, right? Coming out of an era where everybody was being lynched, coming out of an era where the NAACP building would say a man was lynched today, right? On a regular basis in the early 1900s. Now there's advancement being made, building up momentum for the eventual passing of Civil Rights and Voting Rights Act, which allowed for people to actually have a voice politically in the country again, that black people had already had post-Reconstruction, that was taken back when the Northerners pulled out of the South, post-Reconstruction, right? So all of these things make me say, yeah, what happened historically matters, but we have to have an understanding of, right, the effect of actual policy and why black people switched. I believe black people are very intelligent as far as their politics are concerned, and we didn't switch over for no reason. There was some real policy on the line that made us do it.
I get that too, and I want to say that when you said that, when we understand even from out of the Reconstruction time period and the progressive people who be colored or Negro in the census records in that time frame, they're the ones that are facing politics on a more major level and dealing with it face on, because not all people that's labeled black in the southern states or even west of the Mississippi or in first contact to understand how to deal with the politics of this expanding union we call United States of America. Will you agree with that, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the people who we brought up, shout out to Amos. If you go back, if you check out, we did a thing called Negro Rule on our platform. It leads to the Reconstruction and how there's certain groups of people tied to the being called free Negroes, obviously at this time period, that are in legislative positions, right? And they are the ones that are actually, we'll find later on, historically, in the same states that are making decisions and influencing through either congregations or just civil situations within those states to move into this ideal of what you just brought up with the 1920s situation. Would you agree with that too?
Oh yeah, I mean these men were no joke. The men that became senators and congressmen in southern states as black men during Reconstruction were no joke. Well-educated, wealthy men, black men, proud men pushing forward for the agenda. And That scared these white people. That scared these racists. That scared the Democrats. It was the Democrats that was afraid.
Correct.
And they did everything they could to push back up until the point where, you know, northern whites said, hey, listen, because we've been in the South long enough, we're gonna pull out and enter the KKK. Enter us being put in our place, being hung up from trees. I mean, this is the history.
So a key thing that
can I say something real quick?
Oh, go ahead, bro. Yeah, you ain't gonna
let me just enter into space because I think it's one thing that we missed, or I missed, for instance, because I had the floor. So let me just address this. When the elder spoke, he spoke about something that's been very profound, and I witnessed Democrats kind of take the mantle back with this idea, which was freedom, right? And what I've seen with small government Republican types, they talk about, you know, small government and so on and so forth. But when you talk about things like banning corporate speech, like what happened in Florida with Disney, when you talk about banning books, when we talking about reproductive rights and things of that nature, when they keep talking about control, the control that I am seeing present day, I know we're gonna get back to the conversation as it relates to the history and how we've gotten here. But the point that I'm making, that it seems that I don't see Democrats trying to control anything. I see them saying live and let live. I see Republicans now telling you who the fuck, who to pray to, who can be in your doctor's office, what you can say at your job, what corporations can say, what your kids can read, so when we having this conversation, we got to be honest now, Elder. I understand what you mean from the perspective of where we come from, but we here now. And what it seems like today, in terms of the present day Republican Party, they seem to be concerned far more with control right now than Democrats. I just wanted to say that before you moved on, Monte.
Yeah, no, for sure. So the part that I agree with, and the whole reason why we laid the floor with the history is so we on the same base of saying that that there was documented history in favor of the Republicans when it came to our ancestors, if you're a foundational Black American. All right. And the premise, the main premise that I want to point out is that we can prove that everything that the Democrats was on, they never switched up their end goal. They just the way they did it was different. So I want to play a clip. Yeah, I want to play a clip. Let's take it back while we on history, and then we gonna move up to present time. I think we got Miss Angela back there, so I want to play this clip from Malcolm X real quick. Jog y'all memory. I want to see what y'all think. Hold on.
For sure.
Is our friend, white liberals who have been eager to point out what the white man in the South has been doing to us, while they themselves here in the North are doing the same thing. They have been making a great fuss over the South, only to blind us to what is happening here in the North. And now that the eyes of America's 20 million blacks can easily see that this white fox here in the North is even more cruel and vicious than the white wolf in the South. The Southern wolves always let you know where you stand. But these Northern foxes pose as white liberals. They pose as your friend, pose as your benefactor, pose as your employer. They pose as your landlord. They pose as the neighborhood merchant. They pose as your lawyer trying to help you. They infiltrate all your organizations, and in this manner, by joining you, they strangle your militant efforts toward freedom, toward justice, and toward equality. They use integration for infiltration. Throughout America, here in the North as well as the South, masses of black people are demonstrating against the oppression and exploitation of the white man. Our people have lost all fear of the white man. They have ceased trying to waste their love on the white man. And they have ceased turning their nonviolent cheek to the violent white man. And because of this new, fearless, more militant attitude on the part of our people, we see the increase of violence and bloodshed between the white oppressor and the oppressed, between the white exploiter and the exploited, between the white slave master and his 20 million ex-slaves. And where will all of this end?
Say where it end. Hold on, we got Miss Angela just pulled up. Let me get her in there. We can
Okay.
Peace to you, Miss Angela. Can you hear us?
Make sure she can hear us.
Yes, I can. Good evening, gentlemen.
How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Matter of fact, to the gentlemen that are new to, shout out to Mark and B for pulling up. Can you give everybody a little background so they know? Just because while we invited you, because you've been tied to a lot of things dealing with blacks and all these different things. So you don't mind, just real quick, so they know your position, Miss Angela. Lineage matters.
Oh, hello there. How am I involved with this? I initially started under a hashtag organization's name. Then I jumped from Freedmen, and I moved with the American Indians for a while, and then I found my home among the Autonomous Party here. So that's how I moved. I was part of the reparations dialogue when it initially started some time ago. So yes, I've been here for quite some time.
I want to make sure y'all know we ain't being biased. That we got, and she's older than all of us here, but she's definitely ADOS, FBA, all that stuff. So obviously, shout out to her. We bumped into her on these platforms, and she's been rocking with us. But definitely because of her background and what she knows, I know she can speak about with sources behind it. These different things that's tied to black people, especially from the last 4 years of what's going on, because what she keeps up with. And she's, Ms. Angie, you don't mind me saying it, you out of what we call Maryland, D.C. area, technically. Shout out to everybody.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So I want to make sure she was here for the conversation, because I want to make at least one woman that, is from her position, because you make it seem like we don't let women talk about none of these things, but I don't subscribe to that. However, what do you want to start off? What you just heard and go from there?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to disagree with Brother Malcolm. I look at it like this, and I kind of pass it around. We got 4 or 5 people to speak, but I look at it plain and simple like this. I have no permanent friends. I have no permanent enemies. I have permanent interests. And when I look at certain things and I'm looking at the times, I try to align myself best with who's, speaking rhetorically and co-sponsoring bills, moving in a particular direction. And that's where I kind of put my vote. You know what I'm saying? I always like to say, I put it out on the table that I'm an independent that just happens to vote Democrat.
I agree. Okay, that's cool.
And I like I said, permanent interests, not permanent friends or enemies. So Brother Malcolm is absolutely right. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, the white liberal will smile in your face and bring you in close. And the Republican in this case would be the Southern Wolf, and they let you know where they stand and where they at. I just kind of look at it like which environment would be least hostile to what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And I try to make politics that simple.
I get you. I want to hear that whole part. Mark, What you thinking, man? What's your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely pro Malcolm. Always pro Malcolm. I never respected a white liberal. White liberals are not, everything that he says about white liberals is actually accurate. But I'm not a liberal myself. I'm a progressive.
Okay.
Right?
What you think is the difference, Mark? Right? What's the difference between?
Yeah, it's a good question.
What's the difference between liberal and a progressive in your mind?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
You're talking about liberalism and progressivism. I mean, you got to get down to the fundamentals of what is the overall agenda. A liberal is there to, how can I put this? To give freedoms. It's like
let me help you out, Mark. Let me help you out.
Yeah.
In a metaphorical sense, liberals are here to reform, and progressives are here to revolutionize.
Disrupt.
Disrupt?
Revolutionize, tear down. So when you hear somebody like Bernie Sanders speak, he talking about, hey, we gotta run through the establishment. Even Donald Trump, it's a revolution. It's from the right, but the conversation is what's happening cannot continue to be. But when you hear liberals speak, you hear a lot of reform conversation. But when you hear progressives speak, you will hear progressives say, Democrat, I'm for reparations. You will hear progressives say, I'm for certain things that are more in line with the Black community that we know need to be done, which would be an attack on the current system in the establishment. So when we say progressive, we have a lot of problems with how liberalism tries to placate to our issues, but not necessarily try to fix them. And when you hear progressive policies, you hear things that sound more in line with get to the root cause of the actual issue.
All right. So when you both of y'all say that, and me asking y'all the question, Monty, you want to say something, Miss Angela, before I ask my question?
No, he really broke it down for me. Miss Angela, I don't know if you wanted to say something.
Well, I want to say something. Excuse me. From a progressive standpoint, progressivism is how do you say, leave the past behind.
Right.
So if you're quote a reparationist, you don't want to leave the past behind. You want to pick the past up in order to prove and document your justice suit. So a liberalism, how do you say, I have a problem. I need someone to define what they mean by liberalism, because I understand the term progressivism.
Well, okay, I'm gonna tell you in the time frame of the timeline and me understanding both ones, because I heard everybody. Monte, you want to say something about it? Because I'm
Nah,
gonna
go
tell you
ahead,
my
bro. Go
thoughts.
ahead. You got it.
All right, so liberalism is about in the manner of the free people of color, from the French to the Spanish to even North America. The term libri, all right, this word libri is tied to liberty in English, and liberty is justice for all. And the understanding of justice for all tied to Americans, there's a side in the beginning of it that obviously was talking about us all being in equality amongst our ethnic groups at that time, being labeled free people of color based off the United States of America. As that progressed, as they call ethnogenesis, or just a national ethnogenesis of United States melting pot of what was going on, going into the time frame of politics, of obviously the development of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. You had people that were liberal on both sides, but the Republican side was definitely more conservative than the Democratic side going into a certain time frame. And that's from my research of seeing the timeline. At that point, I mean, that's from a dark-skinned people, black folk, whatever, you know what I mean, that were being more liberal in their thought process of living in the United States of America at a certain time frame, and were progressing, as people would say, outside of what we call the ecclesiastical, or we call churches, and certain conservative ways that was going on, that was being held based off reformation of things, right? And anybody disagree, you can tell me, that progressed. Now, I understand that progression. That's tied to what I like to call ethnogenesis. But when we get to later on liberalism, when Malcolm X is speaking, he's speaking in the civil rights era. And at that time frame, to put the liberalism into a concept of the difference between being progressive, well, the dark-skinned folk, no matter if they were in a liberal position or they're conservative, all had something in common, as Malcolm X pointed out, is that even if there was other people who were liberal and conservative that were not looking like us, they still were able to move in their manner based off the equality of United States Constitution and certain things. But the people of dark skin, no matter of ethnic backgrounds or in situations, were not able to be a progressive, and definitely not as liberal, you know what I'm saying, because of what was going on in the politics at that time. Anybody disagree with that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. What I see, when you look at the traditions of liberalism, Black liberalism, and Black progressivism, I look at, the break off between Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, right?
Right.
You got Du Bois who formed the NAACP. I mean, I think there's a fundamental belief amongst people of Black liberal ideology that we can coexist in a way in which we're going to be able to live side by side with whites. We're going to be able to slightly pivot things in a way that we're invested in as Black people. And now we can, as a collective, be upwardly economically mobile. Whereas when you talk about Black progressivism, you're talking about do for self. You're talking about fundamentally changing institutions. You're talking about we're gonna switch this whole thing up,
It's
revolutionary
different
type
from liberalism.
activity,
I
right?
agree.
And this is why Malcolm and Martin were at odds with each other,
Right.
based on how do we move forward.
Yeah.
The goal is probably incredibly similar. The outcome is probably incredibly similar, and I don't think the brothers, especially at the end, had too much disagreements. However,
No,
Because it
they
was
didn't.
coming
what's
towards
the
each other.
approach? What's
They
the
was coming
approach?
towards each other.
I
Right.
think
What's
the
the
thing.
approach?
I think the thing here is like after examining history, because I'm glad Mac asked y'all the question about liberalism versus being, progression, right? But truthfully,
Hold on 1 second.
within the Democratic Party, those two things can't exist. And this is why we wanted to have this conversation, because we got the benefit of being a Monday morning quarterback, right? We can go look at what happened with history and we can fast forward to today to say policies like the New Deal. We were talking about the New Deal earlier, right? Today in time, we can 100% be a qualifier because we grew up off of the generations who were first introduced to this. All of us around the same generation. Our generation for sure was hit the hardest off of all of these effects from policies that started from the early 1900s all the way to the civil rights movement. A lot of our parents and grandparents was the ones who went through this. And right now today, our neighborhoods and communities, I know y'all out of Florida. Well, Mark, you out of Florida too?
Yeah, I'm in Florida.
Okay, I'm from Louisiana. Right now I live in Georgia. So we all talking about areas that's black areas, right? And would y'all agree that our communities are not in a good position in totality? I don't mean just the one couple good ones that I'm talking about. If you went to the average regular black neighborhood, would it be flourishing and thriving, or would it need a lot of work?
Oh, it needs a ton of work. Communities
Okay.
is nowhere near where it should be.
Okay, so next question. Would you say that a lot of these places, especially the bigger black cities, have democratic representation?
Sure. The
By and
cities
large,
have democratic representation, but what do the
Gotcha.
states have? The states are red.
Oh yeah, for sure. The state could be different, but what I'm saying is,
Definitely.
there's a time now, like back in the day, they would say we didn't have anybody that looked like us in any positions of power, but now we know that's nowhere near the truth. So basically, what we want to do is push into current time is to go to how, like you said, the vote supposed to be for sale. We shouldn't be loyal to anybody that has nothing to offer us as either Americans or definitely as Black Americans. We need one of the two. It's not realistic to have somebody from the white community or Asian community to become a major political person, and the first thing they want to do is look out for communities that don't look like them. That's just not realistic. But the Democrats are anti-American. Go ahead, bro. Rock with it.
No, because you said that. I mean, because that leads to, in this time frame of politics today, and I wanted to ask both of y'all brothers, this whole thing tied to Kamala Harris being the one to represent Black Americans, that's the topic of the conversation would be, right? Because she's the candidate at hand, right?
Yeah.
She's the VP in office right now.
Absolutely.
I don't identify her as a Black American. There's some people that do identify her that look like me or look like us on this panel that will say, oh, she's Black. You know what I'm saying? But in that whole part of it, it takes away from her as a VP running for president, her policies. See what I'm saying? So in the situation, how do y'all feel about that whole part? How do y'all look at her? Mark, do you think that she's Black?
Absolutely. I think Blackness is a descendant of sub-Saharan Africa, period.
Okay.
Blackness
That's
is
what it is.
a race that was put on us. We didn't choose to be Black. We were told we were Black. We were subjugated as Black. We were classified as Black. We were marginalized as Black, and we became proud of our Blackness. And in many cases, we took arms to defend our Blackness all over the world. So the understanding of that struggle is also understanding that many of our people are going to be light skinned, whether it's due to rape that happened in the 17 and 1800s, or due to admixture and such. You got people like Adam Clayton Powell who were passing for white in Harlem, but pushing a black agenda. You understand what I'm saying? Politically in America,
Right.
doing
Right.
a lot
And
of the
clean that up.
groundwork that these people had problems with MLK because they felt MLK was taking a lot of credit for the groundwork that these people were doing in the trenches of Congress, in the halls of Congress.
I mean, he was Republican
getting
too.
bullied. This is the thing. But as far as looks are concerned, listen, we could always talk about who's black, who's not. Are you
Right.
Indian? Are you mostly white? You got green eyes, you're not black. We can have those conversations. You Creole, you're not black. You from Latin America, you darker than me, but you're not black. We can have these conversations. I don't see the value at it. What I do feel like is people of like mind. Clarence Thomas is black. People of like mind that are pushing for the collective of blackness. We gotta rise above. Like we gotta think about things as from a result.
So you feel she's pushing for the collective of black people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I feel she's pushing for the collective of black people.
Brandon, I want to get your thoughts real quick though, and then Mr. Angelique can come after that before Montier or me come in. I want to let you, Brandon, go ahead. It's your own beat.
Yeah, so I feel like as it relates to Kamala and race and things of that nature, I feel like it's a false narrative.
Okay.
In a red herring, it's sending us in a direction that's unproductive because her campaign nor her has brought up her gender nor her race. We are now taken from the media's narrative, acting as if they're running that type of campaign and they are not. If you look at back in 2016, what they were doing was making it apparently clear that Hillary Clinton was a woman. At no point in the actual campaign have they made her race or her gender an issue. People that are making those things an issue want to create and divide with the issue so we can have these types of conversations. Now, if it was her saying, listen, I'm a black woman, black people vote for me, then that would be one thing. But what's happening and what I'm seeing on the ground is black people are saying they want me to vote for her because she's black. And I have not heard that one time from the campaign.
You said you never heard her say she's black? Or?
I've never seen her say vote for me because I'm black. I didn't say
Okay.
That's
that part. That's all right.
That's subjective. Now Biden did, famously had his line, but for Kamala, I never heard her say vote for me because you are black. But
that's the narrative, though, and that's
no.
saying.
The narrative is, but I just want to make sure we all on the same page. The narrative is she's claiming to be a black person.
She's not claiming to be anything. She's just being what she is.
Oh no, she definitely claimed that for sure.
But what I don't have to claim what I am. You saying I'm claiming something.
What do you mean?
So the other point is people like me do not believe that she's like he basically had a Pan-Africanist ideology saying that you can be black if you from Africa.
You talking about Mark, correct?
Mark,
absolutely.
Yeah, anybody that's tied to that narrative.
Right, but the opposing view is you can grow up in Africa. That don't mean that we look alike, that we had the same struggle. And I grew up in Louisiana. We got completely different, ideologies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's what I'm getting at. So that's when we say black, we mean like, did your ancestors go through the same thing that ours went through here in this country? And if you can't relate to that, we're not the same, no matter if we look alike.
We can prove that,
but who is the same?
We can prove that, though. No, but we can prove that.
I think this is the. Let me make the point right here, and this is the point I was getting to. See, we get too bogged down in stuff like this, socially, politically, and from a spiritual standpoint. What we'll sit here and do is we'll say, are you a Moor? Are you a Pan-African? Are you a 5%er? We'll play these games about who we don't know who we are based on whatever records we haven't searched. And this identity crisis creates these divisive conversations. Now, what white people have done in the past and in our history, white people that were at the top, you know what they did that were British? When the Italians came over here, when the Germans came over here, at some point in time, at first, there was a very elitist mindset. Then when they understood that the point and the purpose was to subjugate us, you know what they all said? We was white. But what we're doing right now is we already don't have the numbers, and we're creating a divide to have less of the numbers to try to have social, economic, and political power. And this is the reason why these movements sometimes never have traction, because we have not learned from the successes of others, nor have we learned that allyship in anything that we've done is the way to go. And so when we want to start creating these divides, and you are right, Monte, absolutely. An African from Nigeria does not know anything about being from South Florida. But at the same time, when his ass get over here and he get pulled over, whether he from the Bahamas, whether he from Puerto Rico, whether he from Brazil, whether he from Florida, he's a nigga. And if we want to do this, it's cool, but I am saying it is unproductive.
Well,
when we talk about political power, because white people have shown us that they will come together, whether they be Jewish, Catholic, or whatever.
White people not together either, though. That's the thing.
No.
Is Trump white?
That's not
Trump
true.
is white, but do all white people support Trump?
I'm gonna ask the other brother.
You see what I'm saying?
That's not true in terms of political power.
It's plenty of white Democrats, right?
Hold on, I'm asking this question for a reason. I'm asking this.
It's clearly all white people.
Let me just say this. I'm gonna shut up. Do y'all believe there's a wage in whiteness? Being white.
Say it again.
Is there a wage for being white? Like, is compensation? Does that give you something? Identifying as white.
Yeah, it would be better in the system.
Okay, so we in 2024. So what I'm saying is there has to be a wage at some point for being black. If there's a wage for being white, there has to be a wage for being black. And if black is going to have any power, it needs allies. And I'm saying this conversation creates division. These white people have determined.
We're cool.
No. But I'm saying, I'm not talking about amongst us, Mac. You know me.
I know. I'm saying, but like,
I'm saying
the community. I get what you're saying.
I'm talking about when we start saying what is and what isn't black, because they haven't done that. An Italian is black, a white, and so is a German or an Irish person.
All right, so most definitely. He would be considered an Anglo-Saxon. His name,
but he's not though.
No, whoa. His people came after 1870. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they came into Drumpf, DFRUMP, before it became with the T, was the German. His people migrated after. So I mean, when it comes to us black folk, Trump come after our folk anyway. However you want to look at it, but when it comes to her and her not being black, she is not tied to that. Her people are tied to the immigration of people of national origin coming out of whatever race, ethnicity, or creed of the time frame of the immigration time frame of the civil rights era, which would be 1955 and 1968. Her father and her mother, and obviously even a person of Jamaican national origin, because that's what it would be. No matter what their mixture would be, coming into the country at that time frame is, yes, going to be labeled black, but they're not the same Negroes that Martin Luther King was addressing, tied to what we call the Homestead Acts. Because not a Jamaican, not a Trinidadian, and not anybody from the Caribbean can claim anything tied to the Homestead Acts. That's why we have to delineate what's going on politically, dealing with why certain people are making different decisions being labeled black. Ms. Angela, I want to make sure you tap into.
Yeah, I want to interject on that note, because one, I think it's disrespectful to call Kamala Harris black, because she's not. She is a Brahmin Indian woman. That's her mother, and her father is a Jamaican. What's the other Hindu man?
Yeah.
So therefore, she is of that product. In addition to that, her parents came here during the Hart-Celler Immigration Act in the 1960s, right? The late 60s. That's when you had an influx of immigrants from the continent and then foreigners from the Caribbean, people with the phenotype of black. But coming into this nation, they came with a card. They came plain or whatever. But they didn't come over here the same as, quote, some of those free, end quote, free and enslaved black people or people of color.
So I just have a question for the party, just quick, and we ain't got to get too deep into it.
Go ahead.
Because my barber, and many other people, we have the damn near identical phenotype. You can look at our features and we look alike. He's from Panama. Mm-hmm. Was it born here? And at some point his parents came here. Is that man black? I was born here. My father is from Tampa, Florida. So what I'm saying is that man with that same exact phenotype, because he was born in Panama, he's not black.
So here's the thing.
Like me.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So let me ask you the question in a dualistic way though, because you can go when we go fill out these forms, right? To put what we are, there's never been a police officer over your shoulder to choose what you pick. You can choose.
I can respect that.
Okay, so check it out. So when we say black, we mean, do you have the lineage tied to all the historical things that happened to black people in this country? If you don't have that lineage, then you not like us. It's just that simple. They can make themselves
but
black.
Is black though? I understand we can't do it on the census, but I'm saying like, is blackness only, I guess, particular to the United States of America? Because this is a very small fraction.
It isn't.
Okay.
That's easy answer. No. Why? Okay, so why? Because we know, like how the brother Mark, and Mark, you can tap into what you said. We know, and when you go to historical points, since we bringing that up real quick, and Mark, I want you to tell me if I'm wrong from what you have stated in your position of Kamala in the first place, because the sub-Saharan understanding. Anybody from the 15th century tied to the slave trade that came into the Caribbean, South America, Central America, or North America have something in common tied to chattel slavery or the Inquisition or certain things. Do you disagree with that, Mark? Or agree?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. That's the historical. That's just history. That's
so
objective reality.
Now, in commonality, I understand where you're coming from. I have no issue. I can't go against that part of people who tie to that, especially to a people labeled Negroes and Black in any of these areas of the Americas. That's the Caribbean, from South Central going into Canada. It's historically understood. Now, when we get down to the delineation, because we understand how people delineate even within our customs of being labeled Black, from that understanding that Mark brought up. You know what I'm saying? So in that understanding, the people that are coming into America at 1965, based off the Immigration Act at that time, are coming in and they're delineating themselves amongst people that Martin Luther King was talking about being called the Negro, that were dealing with Homestead Acts and things that were going on amongst the people who were tied to things that go back to 1865 in this country. Not the people who are immigrating in that were now being labeled colored or Black, because they're definitely going to be labeled African. Because even Obama, historically, as a president of this country in 2012, delineated the Negro, specifically that's tied to that history, to be now called an African American. And those are the people that only are debating about that historically on these social platforms or any situation. You don't see a Jamaican arguing about that, a Haitian Jamaican. No, they're not doing that because that's not tied to their part of being labeled Black in this country. That's the difference. I understand that. I understand that completely.
Let me ask you a question, Max, so I just understand the history and so I can get some proper edification and education. When you talk about the Homestead Act that you're referring to, can you give me a time frame and give me some specifics as to what that means so I can have context, because I don't.
Okay. The Homestead Acts that Martin Luther King was talking about, when they talk about pull up from your bridges and
put yourself up by your bootstraps and all that. Yeah, absolutely.
That was about land. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Land grants. He mentioned that, Black folks was getting before. I'm with you. All
right. So his heritage, which I can easily lay out, he's talking about specifically when he said the Negro in that, he's not talking about a Jamaican. He's not talking about a Barbadian. He's not talking about a Haitian. He's not talking about none of those people out of the Caribbean or anybody out of the diaspora that could have came into this country tied to the civil rights era of the Immigration Act of people that will be labeled Black coming in. Okay. You understand? All right. Why? Because the Homestead Act goes back to 1865, 1862 of the civil rights, the Civil War. The civil era is tied to what was going on, tied to the people in the Civil War time frame.
Right. So there were several Homestead Acts.
If you have heritage tied to being a Negro going back to 1865, that's who Martin Luther King was talking about and fighting for, outside of the other groups of people that are being called minorities that were already in the country prior to the Immigration Act being passed in 1965, like Malcolm X.
Well, one thing we got to do, we got to be precise. If we're gonna talk about this, we have to be exact.
I'm trying to be exact.
No, and I'm not saying you're not exact, brother. But what I'm saying is, let's take it a step further. We do understand that there's always been migration and movement of brothers out of the Caribbean into the United States of America during slavery, post-slavery, and every single year from that point on until today. Do we understand that? When you look at a picture, There's a very famous picture of the first black members of U.S. Congress. They got their old, 1800s garb on. They were Republicans. They sat on Congress. People like Robert Small, like these were the first people that were elected. We were talking about them earlier. Do you know that there was a Haitian American amongst them?
There's plenty of people in America tied to Haiti because we not even tripping about knowing that was people Caribbean tied to America prior to 1965. That's not the point.
And
so the delineation is not being dismissed there.
Given that movement, we know that there were Americans, people that were called Americans that went to Trinidad. We know that there were a group of Americans that the Haitian president sent for to seek refuge in what is now Dominican Republic, a place called Samana. So what I'm saying is there's always been movement amongst us.
Of course.
The lineage, when we talk about lineage, sure, there's an ethnogenesis that occurred for FBA, black descendants of chattel slavery in the United States of America. Absolutely. Salute to them. But the lineage that unites us, what makes us black is sub-Saharan Africa. The bloodline does not stop with slavery. The bloodline goes back tens of thousands of years.
So let's do this.
That's how
I understand that part too, because Aboriginally, hey, look, I'm gonna say this for Monte, and I'm gonna say this, even though I know, because everybody that's listening tonight live, context, I'm gonna say melanated people, as Malcolm X stated, that you say you agreed with, Mark, Aboriginal people as his concept in 1960s, that were dark-skinned people no matter where they were located in the world, Africa, Europe, Asia, or the Americas. Not maybe what we might have in common based off of a systematic thing in this style today that we're talking about. And that's why this conversation can be more complex on that level of how people technology-wise have an understanding of dealing with their history, their heritage, and different things tied to being labeled black in this country, and how different groups of people have mixed together over time. That's a whole nother conversation. Now, I want to just go back to Kamala though, right? When this, I have something interesting, you know what I mean? And B, locally, right? B, I ran poolside for what, 8 years?
Sometime.
Long time, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was ran by East Indians. You know what I'm saying? I would call. Shout out to my man Ben Bennett. You know what I mean? I can't front. They East Indian folk. You know what I'm saying? But they Christians and all that good stuff and all that. You know what I mean? They own the plantation poolside situation property wise. In that contract I had with them, even though they definitely led with more Trinidadian in their understanding of here, and also Jamaican, funny enough, since Kamala Harris has that situation in common. Indians, East Indians, and Jamaicans, that curry, you know what I mean? Groups of people have certain things in common, carnival and certain things. It's tied to those Caribbean areas and certain situations. I'm not denying that either. And they're being labeled colored. I've seen that. They party with each other. You know what I'm saying? I can't go around that either. So I don't want nobody thinking I don't know what I've seen and you know what I mean, who I've dealt with.
And even dealt with personally. We got you.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm not being biased. But Kamala Harris, in her political position, since we're talking about her also being presented in this black way, Kamala, Monte, can you pull up the link dealing with her as a senator real quick for everybody to see? And I want y'all to tell me about that. And I want to just get this out the way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because we finna sum this all, because I don't want us to get sidetracked. The whole point of this conversation
we want to get to the policy.
Exactly. We want it but the whole purpose of this part is, but hold on. Yeah. So I just want everybody to understand. This was one of the biggest arguments within the community, right? Is she black or not? So we wanted to present both sides of the argument, which is there's people who feel like if you don't match the lineage, we don't care about what you look like. This is deeper than that. And then we got the side of, oh, well, we come from all the same history thousands and thousands of years ago.
Like Mark.
So that's both sides of it, right? So now, hold on, Mac, you said you wanted to get the one about the senator?
Yeah, the senator, her position, and how she represented herself autonomously in a political position and her rise to becoming VP.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Sure.
Just like I would show Obama in his position as a senator to be non-biased tonight. And what he was represented as when he became a senator dealing with Chicago. I could just be non-biased about these political positions of both these people that are actually colored. And I would say both of them, technically, Obama and Kamala are not tied to a specific group of people tied to that 1865 that Martin Luther King was talking about. Not stating that, like Mark said, in America, they're going to be called black. You know what I mean? I mean, especially Kamala Harris, who went to, HBCU and joined a Greek fraternity, you know what I'm saying? Sorority, excuse me, you know what I mean? So amongst mostly majority, what we call today, black people of that actual heritage. So I can get how people symbolically can relate to somebody, you know what I'm saying? 'Cause I've dealt with some folk that's East Indian that relate to Jamaicans and Trinidadians and all that shit, and myself too. You heard me? So I ain't being biased about that. I ain't racist. I want to make sure you don't think that nobody here.
Listen, we with you, brother.
Okay, don't think I'm not that way when I'm talking about this. But at the same time, I understand how to delineate myself. That's the loose. I know how to delineate myself based off my own heritage. I'm not speaking on everybody else's. You got to know who you are. You know what I mean? That's a big part of this political thing too, as Americans. You know what I'm saying?
Very important. It's very important to know who you are. Absolutely.
All right. So, and while you're taking your political
can't be
position,
racist, brother. A black man can't be racist.
He shouldn't. You can be prejudiced though. You can be prejudiced though. You can be very prejudiced. You ain't got to be racist. You're right. No, racist we shouldn't be, but we're definitely prejudiced today, and that's why we're having this problem. So I'm glad you corrected me, Mark. I agree with you. You know what I'm saying? The lesser known side of what it shows here in this link, and then y'all could disagree, and that's why I want to show it. I'm just going to get this out the way. You know what I mean? So this is the side that people don't talk about. You know what I'm saying? And I want to just show it. It's this lesser known side of Harris's identity as an Asian American. And I want to bring this because it's going to get to the politics and policies that I want to point out, and then we can go from there.
And what's the source of this, if y'all don't mind?
Go ahead. What's the source? We can put it in the chat too for everybody.
Pop it right in here.
You know what I mean? That's how we do it too.
Yeah, we show every source. I just put it in the chat. For y'all, I'll put it in the private chat too.
Brandon.
Brandon.
And, Mark, you look in the private chat, you can see the link. You know what I'm saying? Where it come from.
For sure. Appreciate that.
Already. All right, man.
All right, so
you good? You need to make it bigger?
I need a big cataract. All right, so
what about now?
Boom, we good. All right, so there it is. Now, as it says, Miss Harris, vice president and likely Democratic nominee for president, is known widely. Now, look, wherever this court, now I'm glad you asked for the source, B. And Mark, I want you to see it too, wherever the source is coming from. And as we just said, she's never necessarily said that I'm black like y'all. You know what I mean? But look what it says right here in the first paragraph. You know what I'm saying? As the first black woman to be elected as a vice president. You know what I mean? That's going into being a vice president. It says, but Miss Harris, whose mother immigrated from India and whose father immigrated from Jamaica, is less known as an Indian American and Asian American. Asked to name a famous Asian American, only 2% of Americans said Kamala Harris. According to a recent survey by the Asian American Foundation. Now look, the Asian American Foundation. Miss Harris does not shy away from talking about her Indian heritage. East Indian, not American Indian. Now, as an Asian American identity, she speaks often about the strong influence her Indian mother and grandmother had on her life. When she has addressed gatherings of Asian American leaders as vice president, she has often spoken in terms of we and us and referred to herself as a member of the community. As a freshman senator, before she was vice president, Miss Harris, who assumed the role in 2017, was a member of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, as well as the Congressional Black Caucus. She has been a high-profile surrogate for Biden administration to Asian Americans, hosting Diwali and Lunar New Year celebrations, as even Asian-themed night market at her residence in Washington. Now, I want to point out that even though she's tied to the Black Caucus and politics, I guess that's the Jamaican side. But when we get to actual policies that's passed, funny enough, the Asian Americans, Obama, when she was a senator, delineated the people who, if you go back to Obama in 2012, before 2017, as it says there, he delineated what Miss Harris and them people call Oriental, East Indian folk too, Pacific folk too, to be underneath this term called Asian American. It was Obama that did it. Why we have that in comparison? Because it's the same year that Obama changed the term Negro to African American, 2012. Negro, African American. Oriental, Asian American. She is connected to Asian American, and they got an anti-hate bill. The blacks didn't get that she's representing with the Black Caucus, an anti-hate bill. I don't understand the politics of her ethnicity tied to her positions from a senator to VP to now representing any black folk at all in her position and where she's representing in this document. I'm gonna let you speak on that, B, and then Mark, and then I'm gonna let Miss Angela, the lady, speak on this too. Go ahead, B.
So this document, just like anything else, I'm not sure in terms of where this information came from. I'm not saying that it's false or anything like that. Let's just say it's all true. We can find a document or a video where Kamala Harris is identifying herself with the black community and with the African American community. I've seen that as a DA back in maybe like 2008. Yep. And that video hasn't been surfacing because the idea has been to make this point. So, okay, she's identifying with the Asian American community. So what? She is. It's not like she's not. She's half Indian and she's half black.
Jamaican. Like, no. Say Jamaican. Say Jamaican.
Let him rock though, man. I got so we get through it.
This is me speaking, Mac. I got you. You speaking from the foundational black perspective, from a political standpoint about what it is that we want here in this country. I'm speaking from a global perspective, which you've acknowledged based on what Mark said is okay because I specifically asked you.
It's tied to all of us. You're right.
Yeah. What I asked you about somebody being from Panama, looking just like me, being from where Mark is talking about sub-Saharan Africa, we could consider those people black. But furthermore, when you talk about this Asian American executive order, I don't remember legislation being done. I remember an executive order during COVID because of what was happening based on some highly offensive rhetoric. Asian Americans received some protection, which they should have. I'm not mad at that.
Okay.
Now,
so why did we
let him keep that man? Hold on. He walking into it. Come on.
Yeah, I'm cooking. The fish grease coming now.
Go ahead.
The point I'm making with that is, okay, if somebody outside of my community is receiving equity, I'm not sitting here mad at the equity that they're receiving. Now, as it relates to our community, if we go back to the times of somebody like Ida B. Wells and people back then, those individuals were fighting for anti-lynching laws to be passed. Now, do you know when an anti-lynching bill was passed? Finally, after hundreds of years, many times of that legislation being on the floor, that was passed during the Biden administration. So when we sit here and say an actual bill, I'm not talking about an executive order. I'm talking about a bill was passed. The Emmett Till bill was passed under a Biden administration. So when we talk about black folks didn't get any hate crime type treatment, that's just historically inaccurate. And then it happened under the administration that we're going to either blame or praise Kamala Harris for being under.
Well, exactly. But
hold on. Furthermore, to this point about being black and having a restorative justice mindset, when we look at the issues that permeate even this conversation, if we talk about the two candidates here, I have no idea what Donald Trump's reparations stance is. Nor do I necessarily.
Kamala's neither.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Mark, man, let Mark get into it.
Yeah, come on, Mark.
What I'm saying is, and I'm gonna get to Mark because I know I'm filibustering. I'm talking long. Let me just,
you filibustering.
No, I ain't trying to be. I don't want to.
Let me get out the way. Let me get out the way. I gotta be respectful.
Mark, let
me get out the way.
The point is, so that part, bro.
Hold on. So I said that I addressed the Asian thing with the lynching bill, and I'm gonna address the black thing with the bill she co-sponsored with Cory Booker and Ed Markey and 12 other white folks saying that they wanted to get reparations as a conversation at the federal level. Now, that's what she did for black people. Now, whether it got done or not, she got to deal with 100 other senators and 435 people in the House. But did she put her name on some legislation to do that for black folks? Absolutely. And I'm done.
What you got on the Mark?
What you got, Mark?
Yes, gentlemen. Do y'all consider Louis Farrakhan to be a black man?
He definitely would be considered black. We definitely know that he's labeled black in America. Yes.
Do you know that Louis Farrakhan's daddy is white?
Yes, correct. He's mulatto. He's mulatto, and anybody in America tied to the one drop rule would be tied going into 1865. Will have a historical connection based off being labeled mulatto or being labeled completely black based off the one drop rule. So I don't have no disagreement with that. Yes, we know he's mixed.
Do you know the other side of Louis Farrakhan is of Caribbean descent as well?
Exactly.
The black side?
Yes, and as I said earlier, people like Prince Hall, and that's tied to what we call the African Lodge, came out of Barbados. So there's plenty of people historically I can name that came out of the Caribbean, that came into America prior to or during the American Revolutionary time frame, as we stated earlier. I understand there's definitely different groups of people and there are different delineations at that time period as well. So yes, Mark. Keep going.
So, Mac, just so I'm clear, when they came in is the issue, not that they were over there.
Correct.
Okay.
Right.
Can I say something real quick now in regards to the Emmett Till bill? If you read the bill, it doesn't say anything specific in regards to quote black people. So therefore, it's only performative in a sense. It has Emmett Till's name on it. But it doesn't specify the people that was suffered the consequences of those quote lynchings. In addition to that, it's for anybody. It can any crime can be categorized if it's an LGBTQ person. If they harmed, they could be tried and convicted based on this anti-lynching bill.
Okay, so would you say, Miss Angela, just so I'm clear, that if a bill isn't just specifically for those people that Mac are talking about, it's not a bill that's beneficial for us?
Correct.
We do understand that hate crime
is exclusively beneficial.
It's not exclusive.
For us.
But is it beneficial for us nonetheless?
So here's the thing, though.
I'm just asking a yes or no question. Is it I understand it's not exclusive, but I'm asking, is it beneficial to us nonetheless?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Correct. So with that being said, though, they named it the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. So who is that supposed to touch? Who's supposed to understand that story? What community would you say? Okay, so
I would say the people that Mac are talking about.
So let me ask you another question. Would you say that every black person you know in real life, do they go read every bill, every act, every executive order? Do they know exactly what it's?
No, that's why we gotta have conversations like this, because we do.
We gotta read.
So if they hear they passed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act, they think that's about black people, and they spin that narrative even though it's not the truth. This is against hate crimes, period.
That's almost like them. I heard in the discourse, that's almost like Trump signing those stimulus checks and people making an assumption that Trump gave them that money. That's almost like the same thing with this Emmett Till bill.
I got a question.
Our people will look at this bill and think, hey, they did this for black people, right? And if they actually read the bill, they will understand it's a bill that encompasses, it's not for just, quote, black people. It's for everyone.
Correct.
Right. But you guys understand, we do understand that under the premises of the Civil Rights Bill, any law that has specificity with benefit for somebody of any race, religion, sex, right, is by default unconstitutional, and there could not be any bill proposed and passed that has specificity for the benefit of one group of people. Do we understand that?
To the question,
as the law
let me
of
just
this
put this in
land
right here. To this point, in Evanston, Illinois, they passed a reparations bill with a white progressive mayor, and you know what conservative groups came in and said?
Yeah.
To Mark's point, it's unconstitutional. So we keep doing this thing about this specificity, and then we're gonna keep running to these same situations and circumstances based on the same
specificity is a pipe dream. It is
so let's talk specificity.
But they got money about
wait. Hey,
they got money behind that.
Can y'all see this screen?
Though. You're not going to sit here and tell me in the rhetoric that we're not supposed to understand an ethnic specific situation, that a person that was considered a president that delineated two different specific groups of people, and that one group of people.
Me and Marcus saying, to the point about the civil rights.
Well, the civil rights obviously did not take place when Obama passed this, dealing with two specific groups of people in 2012 that was obviously ran by the Democratic Party, dealing with indigenous rights and obviously other things that he was addressing when he was in office for 8 years. This is his second term. At the end of the day, when he did this, and Kamala Harris was a senator at this time, and these are factual things, she is being addressed based off of what he delineated, the Oriental, now East Indian, etc., being lumped into this term called Asian American. Just like now, this is very interesting for us though, labeled Black, and that's why we're having the problem, maybe because as Mark said it earlier, with the sub-Saharan thing that we're culturally all talking about, that we might all have in common based off of national origin. Obama wasn't talking about all those people. He was talking about the Negro that was tied to call now today the African American, and other groups of people labeled Black ain't them people. So let's be specific.
Let's talk specific, bro. We ain't even gotta go. We just said that there's not supposed to pass things with a specific race, gender in mind, right? But then by executive order, right? This was the Asian hate crime bill, which we just realized that a bill, anything that's past the title, could be misleading, right? So you may think, oh man, ain't nothing happened with this. But in this bill right here,
well, no, let's be specific, Monte. It's not a bill. It's
in this executive order, which is better because
let's be exact.
Okay, so let's be exact on that. So to make it even more clear, this means that a president administration felt so strongly that they don't even care what nobody else got to say. We gonna pass it by executive order. This tells what you really care about, because you don't ask for permission, you just do it. Would you agree? That's how executive order works?
I absolutely agree.
Okay, bet. So Biden administration with Harris as his vice president, that we know on record is at least saying at the worst that she's half Asian American, went and made sure that the Asian Americans got protected like a motherfucker. Not only did they get this protection from any lynching, but they got economic benefits up to the billions in different sectors of contracting, small business loans, right? Money funded through banks for their communities specifically, not for everybody else that can apply. If you didn't meet this ethnic group that's listed, you don't get any of these benefits. So this was done by executive order. So
where's the economic aspect of this?
Oh, so this bill is very, very long, but if you go down through here, it breaks it down by every sector. So it'll start talking about COVID and the hate crime part. That was the title, right?
Yeah.
But when you go into it, it details all the different grants. It details every branch of government that's included in this and what they will give. Obviously, we can't read through every single point here, but I've read this multiple times, so you don't gotta take my word for it.
Now, put it in the
chat. So the whole point is, though, while we heard the famous statement where she said, "I'm not saying I'm going to do something that's only going to benefit Black people," but at the same time, she definitely looked out for her other half, you would say, and for sure made something, because you said it was rightfully owned, it was rightfully deserved to them, which I ain't never seen nothing happen to no Asians in the South. But hey, let's say it's true. They definitely would say that we would be deserving, right?
Absolutely.
So how come the Democrats haven't pushed an agenda that's identical to this? Because this is easier than reparations.
This is not easier than reparations.
This ain't reparations.
This is not reparations for them. This is not easier than reparations. Reparations is hard. Reparations is going to take a bill, an act, going through Congress and the Senate and signed by the president.
No, I said this is easier. I said this is easier.
This is just an anti-hate bill. Reparations is trying to be specific about everybody being tied to what we heard in the last 4 years of everybody being a slave. and we can prove why that's not going to work. But everybody tied to being black going into the time frame work. But if you do an anti-ain't bill, that's what we're talking about that you should do for us that you did for them. And Mark, that's all I'm saying. Wait, B, before you say anything, Miss Angela.
Absolutely.
Do you anything you want to say about that?
I'll let you guys go at it.
No, Miss Angela. We need to give you more time. Like I said, I filibustered enough.
No. I really want to hear this discourse.
Okay,
you guys.
If the floor is given back by the elder, I'm okay with that too. So
go ahead.
I agree with the premise of Monte's point about this being easier to be done and should be done. If there is a specific thing that it is that we want. The reason this happened at this point in time wasn't just somebody sat up and said, let's do something for Asian Americans because that's what it would sound like. Because Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, we just want to sit here and get them something. The reason this happened was because there was something going on during the pandemic. And this was being seen on subways, on streets, that Asian American people were being discriminated against violently. Now, that's been happening to us for years, so I'm not disagreeing with this point. But what's happened from the Democratic Party, for instance, when we had something specific happen, like the George Floyd situation, right? Something that Democrats wanted to do something about. One of the biggest problems with policing right now is qualified immunity. One of the biggest problems right now in having situations and circumstances as they happen with policing is the fact that these police keep getting their jobs back. So there is no way to hold them accountable in a national database. So they just keep moving and keep doing the same different practices. One of the things that keeps happening, like Breonna Taylor, no knock warrants. So when something specific happened to a black man with a black problem, Democrats wanted to address everything I just said.
So here goes and Trump campaigned on not only going against the ending of qualified immunity.
He said he wanted to go
further and said he wanted full immunity.
And we can get to that point in a minute, but I want to stay here.
So I'm just saying, when we talk about black issues and something happened, I'm only speaking to the specificity of why this happened.
But we got to
this happened because of COVID, and they addressed it. And so then I went back to the George Floyd thing, which was a specific thing, and they tried to address it, not with just an executive order, but with legislation. And so they tried to take it a step further to make it law, because this executive order, this can be, when the next administration comes through, they can get rid of this. But when it's law, it's a lot harder to repeal. So they were trying to make law that police officers have to be accountable, police officers have to be checked, and do the things that the advocates on the ground and those that believe in serious police reform believe should be done, and Republicans block that.
So on this point though, you just said that the Democrats saying they're being blocked, but we know for a fact, regardless of whatever happens in the next administration, if you feel strongly about something, you can put it on wax through executive order because you want it to happen right now. We've established that that's a fact, right? Like they have the option to do an executive order if it's truly what they want to do. They don't have to wait for this to be approved.
Depending on how far that executive order gonna go.
I mean, it's pretty far right here. They did a lot.
No, this is pretty far. I'm just saying, I'm gonna be honest with you, Monte. So I speak to my limitations.
Okay.
I don't know if
I respect that.
Yeah. I don't know if you can do an executive order that would overturn something like qualified immunity, which is at the Supreme Court level.
You can.
So I don't know if you could just do. You have to put a law in place, just like that's why they're trying to codify Roe v. Wade, because the Supreme Court is going to have the say. So you can't just now say by executive order. So now we're gonna go back into the constitutionality if we do not have a law on the books to the specific thing we're talking about. Because I do not disagree with the premise of your point, which is more executive orders should be in line with our agenda. I don't disagree with that.
And that should be on the forefront of the Democratic agenda, because if they want our vote, that you can't tell us what you can't do when we see you do this shit already. You see what I'm saying? Like that's disrespecting our intelligence.
No.
Hey B,
I ain't arguing.
And I can't. Exactly. CB now. Look,
and I won't.
You see how
rock out real quick, Mac. 1 second.
No, real quick. I was gonna say like that's why B. All I present is, and people now we can get to the policy. You see what I'm saying? I had to get that out off the point of my manner of thinking, because no matter as people try to get into the ethnic part of her background,
sure,
I don't care about it. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
But being that this is being presented about you being part of a certain ethnic group and what they got, you know what I'm saying?
Do you think if she was white, they wouldn't have got it? That's my point.
You think
they
what?
would have still did this? They would have still did this if she was white. If she was Gretchen Whitmer, they still would have did this for these people.
Guess what though? It's unfortunate in her position as a senator that's the position of her identity that it fell under politically, and you have to address it. If you're going to be a senator going into the VP position, and then people are asking you questions that goes back to 4 years ago about what you're going to do specifically about Black people. And we're not talking about Jamaicans, even though Jamaicans who immigrated after 1965, they're labeled Black in America, no matter what Caribbean or any person out the African diaspora that Mark was talking about would benefit from an anti-hate bill tied to Blacks. Period.
We with it.
Mark, do you disagree with that, Mark? Mark, do you disagree with that, Mark?
We'll all benefit. We all benefit as Black people from any policy that's going to push the advancement of Black people in this country.
Period. So me not being biased about my specific ethnicity, foundation, or people like that. When you said foundation earlier, I like to say ethnicity, but still, because I don't even agree with everything they doing. But I
like to say what do you say? What do you call it?
I say ethnicity. It's ethnicity.
Okay.
By the way, ethnicity, like an indigenous term tied to our heritage. We like to identify with, and it's mixtures and everything in it. We be bipartisan about that too, but we're using the term tied to what we know that ties us to terms in the Reconstruction period and everything lawfully. So because people like to use the term freedmen, so we're gonna use a term that we know is a little bit more, founded to our heritage. But at the same time, we understand politically who we are today and our mixtures and people that mixed in and everything else, you know what I mean? And how we mix today currently with Caribbean people, other different groups of people, Black people are, mixing with white folk, you know what I'm saying? Having children and all, Spanish folk. And also, so I'm not here to get caught up in that kind of race thing, you know what I mean? Of mixtures of things and how people are now going to be labeled Black by the system. But if she's represent Black folk, as we've heard so much about outside of the policies, this is a policy thing that we're presenting that you could do for Black folk, as you would call it, that helps the totality of the spectrum of people.
And we got to see what she do when she, we gotta be fair, and because y'all being fair, like you said, this is a lot easier than reparations. That's the point Monte made. I don't disagree with that.
It's signed by Joe Biden, but I wanted to highlight.
But let me just say this before you jump in, Mark, because I want to make the point about where she is in her situation. This is Joe Biden's policy. What I'm saying is, we would never ask, what did Mike Pence do? We would never ask what Joe Biden did. We would never ask what Dick Cheney did. We would never ask what George W. Bush did when he was on the radio.
Can I stop you real quick? The difference between Kamala Harris and the names that you mentioned,
sure,
they went through the primary. Kamala Harris did not.
I can respect that, Ms. Angela. I can respect that. All I'm saying is people are asking what she's done for the last 3 years, and I'm only saying that the fact that the vice president is at the behest of the president. So we're being asked about a policy that Joe Biden did an executive order for. Mm-hmm. And so I can't really speak to those that are in that secondary position.
That's fair.
So it's one of those things where it's very tricky, because what she's gonna do is she's gonna take credit, but then she ain't gonna want to take blame. So it's a very tricky spot to be in.
She's been doing that. She'll have
times. Correct.
Yeah. So because I've watched, I want to be clear about this, because some people are not truly fair to this process. I literally, in the party, and anybody who watched this channel, they can tell you, I watch, I would say 80 to 90% of all the content that come out from both sides.
Okay.
And I try to watch it all the way through, because I know how the media does. They'll put clips, make it sound crazy on both sides, but definitely more skewed to Trump. But let's not even get to that. You're right in saying let's judge Kamala by the fruits that she says she gonna put out. So this is her plan that she said was gonna be for Black men. Now she ain't say for the Black community. She just chose Black men. Cool.
And so, we know why though, right?
Because it ain't looking good for her. She know exactly why.
Of course.
And also that there's already programs in the last 4 years that are already out that actually Black women have debated about, that are in political positions, about how the Republican Party is trying to actually take away those programs and grants for Black women. But there's no programs for Black men. That's why she's specifically dealing with black men because she knows that black women already have programs allocated to them over the last 4 years. Go ahead.
But can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Ms. Angela.
Can they actually pass that legislation? Could she actually do that? Because again, you already said earlier, it's against the law to specify a group of people, especially black. Because again, it's an umbrella term.
The thing that
black, you can be a black that came here yesterday
whenever
and qualify for this.
That's correct. But we're going to take it at the premise of what was put out, because she put this out saying for black men only, right? So based on what she said, let's break down these points because it ain't that many. The first one says they want to provide $1 million forgivable loans up to $20,000 to black entrepreneurs and others who have a good idea but don't have the resources, connections, or access to capital to get their business off the ground. So first point number one, that's not specific to black men. Why would you could have just said black people and kept it real versus making it seem like it's just for black men, because black entrepreneur don't just mean man. And I don't even know what others mean. So, maybe they talking about all the other things they done made up with Democrat and no telling, right? But that's your first point. The second one is to launch a national health equity initiative focused on black men. The black men we already don't trust the doctors and hospitals and shit. So it's like, cool, okay, this actually do say black men, so I give her that credit. So the third one is say legalize marijuana at the federal level to break down unjust legal barriers that hold black men and other Americans back. So I guess you feel like you can get the black voter. You say, I'm gonna legalize marijuana at the federal level. Y'all should be happy with that. There. Me personally, I felt like that was disrespectful, knowing the fact that damn near everybody in America, all races, young and old, smoking the weed for damn sure. But hey, this was the point that they put. All right. Then it say lowering costs by enacting the first ever federal ban on corporate price gouging for food and groceries. Another thing that does not affect only black men. This will benefit everybody. Like you said earlier, Brandon, they passed these laws that it helped everybody. But why put a name as if it's only for a certain group of people when it's just a flat out lie? All right. And the last one, it says lower rent and provide down payment assistance to triple the number of new first-time black homeowners. Once again, this ain't just for black men. Now, this her whole policy that she came with out of nowhere when she was doing bad in the polls, and they sent Obama to whip us. Like, we supposed to listen to him, and this is what she come up with.
Hey, so that's some Emmett Till shit that Ms. Angela was talking about. That's not even specific to a specific group of people that have been actually stomping on her door, going crazy in town hall meetings. Ms. Angela, you can speak to this, right? That especially, I know over the last 4 years, people have been going crazy about reparations, even though, as you said, and Mark even said, it'd be a lot more complicated because of things. But this anti-hate thing that, we see tied to what we pointed out in comparison, based off of all the noise being made that we know also is being made by particularly what we call black people. Why would you not address this?
Well, from my perspective, when it comes down to reparation, people are asking for repair, right? But if you look at the definition of reparations, it's not what most people assume. It's an act. In other words, it's going to be performative in nature. It's not going to be restitution where they're going to actually right the wrongs of the past.
What you got on that, Brandon?
So my thing is, to my point, to the highest level of, like I said, like the people in Illinois that are black folks, when this man Daniel Bliss run for governor, you need to vote for him. At the end of the day, they got through some things. It's cash payments that have been paid out. There's some other things that happened, but because due to the nature of what we understand, what Mark said, due to that very nature, it's being challenged now because it's being seen as unconstitutional. So to that end, we keep asking for things that are going to be very, very difficult, even though we feel like they're very, very easy. I'm not saying from the executive order standpoint. We've already addressed that is a route that they can take, and I'm very aware of that.
Man, we got the Heritage Foundation and the lawyers going after everything that's DEI, diversity and equity and inclusion, right? On the basis that it discriminates against white people. The stuff that Maynard Jackson put together to make Atlanta a hub for black people, a black Mecca, as it was referred to in 1972. Those policies that gave black businesses a piece and a cutout, right, from the city's budget as it relates to the airport and other government contracts, right, would be attacked today, right? It would never have happened the way that these people are moving about today, trying to gut every policy that disproportionately benefits black people. This is critical. It's
So
not a
to
drill.
So to that end, I'm not even on the Project 25, bandwagon right now, but I appreciate you bringing that in, Mark, because I like to do it in this way, because a lot of people think Project 2025 is like some alarmist shit, and they're going to say that Trump is distanced himself from it. That's not his agenda. So I like to talk about Agenda 47, because that's what he's actually said. If we being fair,
yeah. Okay, yeah,
that's the same thing. We I would do this exact same thing. Although we know J.D. Vance wrote the foreword, which is his vice president, and we know it's a lot of Trump administration and officials that were a part of that. But again, that's operating in speculation.
My Heritage Foundation.
Wait. You said the Heritage Foundation is written. The foreword was written by J.D. Vance.
Yes, for Project 25.
But the Heritage Foundation, we can pull up a source, goes back to the time frame of Obama.
But go back to the 70s. Has never produced an ask for policy for the Obama administration. It did.
Oh, that's not true.
That's not true. Don't do that. That's not true.
Show me the policy. Show me the policy, because
because we can show you. That's why people playing this game as far as trying to pick these social groups and these organizations that's lobbyists that are tied to both groups and how it's being played now. I mean, oh yeah, when he brought up Obama. And he brought up, you know what I'm saying? I mean, when I brought up Obama saying that Obamacare, that's tied to the Heritage Foundation.
But let me finish my point about what was being asked about what was on that list, because that was a question. Why are you pulling that up, Monte? Is that fair?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So even though you don't have the list up, if you go to what these people are dealing with, because you got to understand, it's a real big consultant class dealing with Democrats and Republicans, and they do a lot of polling. They look at a lot of data. Right, and try to stay in that sweet spot to get away from the idea of specificity, because it's very hard to do, right? Given the limitations and given, again, the legality based on laws that's already on the books. Everything that was just named right there, Monte, Mac, Miss Angela, if you go to a website called the Black Education Alliance, I believe, and again, we got to discuss who, because we got these different sects of black folks, right? It was a bunch of black folks that were polled. And I don't know this to be true, but every one of those things on that list was polled at like 80% or higher when black people were asked what it is that they wanted as it related to things.
Talking about that Kamala list I just showed?
Correct. Like they wanted stuff for black people to have access to capital. They want rent caps and stuff like that. Everything that's on there is attached to something that I saw or something very similar to that. So I believe, this is my honest opinion, just being a smart black man, that they've been looking at polling data, and they've been looking at things that when we have conversations about things that could be publicly that could disproportionately affect black people, they just took those things and said, hey man, this is what we gonna do. That's literally, because like I said, I literally just looked this up today just to see where did this come from. Like out of the blue, black men are up in arms. You know what I'm saying? They're saying we possibly might vote with y'all. And in last week, now we have an agenda for black men. So I'm thinking, okay, where the fuck that come from? So I started looking, like, what have black people been saying? Yeah, what have black people been saying based on data that they want? That I'm saying 80% of what you just read, Monte, comes from that data. So I just want to put that out in the atmosphere, because I know y'all about facts here. And so what we do with that is what we do with that. But I'm saying they just going with the numbers. They trying to get elected and they trying to appease people. So
So let's stick to the Project 2025, because we already know this was going to come up, because the media can't help but say this every day about Trump. So I'm glad that y'all actually know, because a lot of people from the Democratic side don't even know about the Heritage Foundation. So salute to y'all for actually knowing that. But the truth of the matter is, since their inception in the 70s, both sides, Democrat and Republican, have adopted many random different policies from the Heritage Foundation. This is just a fact, right?
Sure.
So it doesn't matter. Even in Obama, the only thing we want to point out is it is not true that Obama didn't have any. The most famous one is the Affordable Care Act. And he said it in a March 30, 2010 interview on NBC Today. He basically said that a lot of the ideas that he got were for the Healthcare Act were from the Heritage Foundation, because they put out a mandate every year. They always are lobbying and putting out different policies. They've been doing this a long time. So it's funny how they're trying to attribute this new Project 2025 as if Trump authored it and these are all his plans, when this man already has his, like you said, Agenda 47.
Agenda 47, right?
He has his plan. It was out long before. He was never, when we know Trump to be shy to talk about what he can and what he has done. He gonna talk about that shit all day if you let him.
No,
so that's not like a thing that he lacks. He will talk about himself.
Hiding that shit.
Come on, bro. He don't, like, we gotta be honest. He don't
That's
do
why
it.
I don't get caught up in that conversation about 2025 like that.
Correct.
Cool.
So I just wanted to put that out there. They're not for either side. They want their policies to be adopted, period, because it makes them look good.
So
they
you
gotta stop that.
This makes sense. Let me tell you why this makes sense. Just to give y'all some backstory, maybe y'all don't know. From a national standpoint, and a more prominent Republican, that's a little what we consider more moderate. This is really nothing but the Massachusetts plan from Mitt Romney and his health care policy when he was governor of Massachusetts, and we obviously know he's a Republican. So they took portions of that.
Correct. They both do that.
Then they kind of created this more watered down version of what was supposed to be access for everybody to get health care, but it's very difficult to do the quote unquote progressive thing. And so now we get into these fights and the money get involved, the lobbying get involved, and they all become dirty hands getting cleaned by money.
Okay. So with that being said, the number one reason, because I'm from the autonomous party. I don't support either one, but I'm not a fool. And I understand that if you participate in this economy, what happens on a federal level will affect you. So it's best that you at least participate, right?
Sure.
So I support Trump 100% because of the policies that he has for growth that is in America, like you said, which will help all people who consider themselves Americans, because you have the rights and access to do the same thing as a white American, an Asian American. You don't need somebody to give you something. You can go make it happen based on policies that help Americans. Okay. So by far, after doing my research, man, budget policies is blowing they shit out the roof. A lot of the stuff that she's taking now, and even Biden, came from Trump. They just don't want people to know it. So I'll talk about one specifically.
Okay.
This Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. Now, this was legendary what bro did. This is just facts. So I want to go to the break.
Well, I want you to know I'm a tax professional, so I know all about this. But
okay, so this is perfect, because I'm not a tax professional, but we cannot deny what was written and how it would affect all Americans, whether you own a corporation or you're just an individual who works a job. So would you agree that in this bill that there's tax cuts for every sector of working Americans, whether you're the business owner or the employee?
Yes, there were.
Okay. And this they said that this was the most tax reform in decades, is what they wrote in analysis of this. Would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay, so when they say that he hasn't done anything to help the working class, or he only looks out for the rich, this bill by itself disproves that.
Well, I wouldn't say it disproves that. What I would say though is there is a lot of misinformation about how much it didn't necessarily help the middle class, because they make it seem like it didn't at all, and that's not true either.
Right.
Now, the majority of the benefits, given some of the I don't want to get too deep into the legalese, like for instance,
just give them a high level.
Yeah, because there's a thing called a Schedule A. Now, back in the day, what you could do on a Schedule A was you could itemize your deductions at the federal level.
Correct.
Now, when this came into play, you were no longer able to do that. And that was a thing that a lot of middle class people with working jobs were able to do. And this got rid of that. Now, to try to offset that, Monte, what he did was he raised what's called a standard deduction, which means no matter what you do, being single, head of household, married, filing jointly, it raised that ceiling just for whatever your filing status is. So whatever you said you were, whether you had a wife, a husband, you had kids or whatever, he did raise that. But what he got rid of was that critical thing for the middle class. So it kind of is a give and take in them. I just want to be as unbiased as possible, because a lot of people would say it didn't do nothing for the middle class. That's not true.
Right.
A higher standard deduction works in the favor of middle class people, because it automatically brings down. So let's just say, for instance, you make $50K a year. If the standard deduction used to be $7,000 and Trump now put it at 11, you automatically go from being at 50 minus 7 to 50 minus 11, and your taxable income determines how much tax you owe. Right. So I will give him that ability. And then again, everybody don't itemize in terms of the middle class, but those that did, they lost that ability. So there were things in there that were good and things in there that took away our benefit of lowering our taxable liability. Just being fair and honest across.
No, that's all good, because once again, we do our research. So I went and all the
there
things.
You go right there. You see, I use that term and I didn't even know you had it on the screen.
Nah, you on point. That's why when you write, you write. But the whole point of this is this was a plan. You can tell by the way that it was written is that the intent was to help as many Americans as possible. And the fact that they go against that and say that he was trying to hurt the middle class, that's just a flat out lie. You see what I'm saying? So we can't let them tell us it's raining and we see it ain't. When you can read for ourselves, like, hold on, bro. This shit is actually pretty good for majority of people. It's not going to help everybody, because maybe your tax bracket, you so low, you're not making real money that the tax breaks really don't help you at all. But shit, he can't help you get no more. You know what I'm saying? You got to get up off your ass, make something happen. He ain't the savior. You feel what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But if he's making different policies that affect everybody, because we just got to keep it real. The people with the wealth create the jobs. These corporations do create the job. Everybody's not going to be a business owner, no matter what race you are. This is just a fact.
But trickle-down economics, supply-side economics has been debunked, brother.
But this ain't trickle-down economics.
There's no trickle-down.
But this isn't trickle-down, that's what I'm saying.
These companies, right, that make this wealth, that create this wealth, they hoard this wealth. They keep this wealth within their investment portfolios, and they keep it circulating amongst them. It does not come back down in the form of investment into poor people via jobs or any other way. All right, and these Trump's tax plan disproportionately benefited the wealthiest of wealthy Americans. And I'm going to read this to you from the federal tax, cbpp.org, which is the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities.org. All right. It says
I love how everybody using primary sources, by the way. We ain't using no fluff.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
I love it.
And this so it says the policy was skewed to the rich. Households with income in the top 1% will receive an average tax cut of more than $60,000 in 2025, compared to an average tax cut of $500 for households in the bottom 60%. According to the Tax Policy Center, as a share of after-tax income, tax cuts at the top for both households in the top 1% and the top 5% are more than triple the total value of the tax cuts received for people without incomes or with incomes in the bottom 60%. Come on now, right? Do these people need more money to hoard and not invest in the American population?
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Is this, right, the tax policy that's supposed to benefit the poorest of poor people that are looking to deal with inflation, to deal with all the problems that he always talks about in his campaign speeches, right? Is this how you're going to sit up here and propel poor people out of poverty and be able to cover this nut? Absolutely not, bro.
I got a question to ask. Who writes tax policy? Is it the President of the United States, or is it the Congress and Senate? Because you're acting like, of course the President can do an executive order or whatever, but you act as if everything falls on the President. There is the Congress and the Senate, and they are in charge of tax policy. Am I not correct?
That's correct.
Sure, they vote on it.
This wasn't an executive order.
So therefore, why aren't we yelling about this? Because Kamala Harris did sit in the Senate for a while. Obama sat in the Senate for a while before he was elected president.
So when this happened, Miss Angela, in 2017, the reason why it was able to happen is because I think Trump had a majority house, and he had I think a 55 to 57. I think he had 57 senators, in the majority that they had.
Yeah,
they were able to implement this tax policy, which is something that he was saying that he wanted to do.
correct.
So whether we agree or not agree with the idea of him actually doing it, I strongly and wholeheartedly believe that he spearheaded this, although he was not necessarily the one that wrote the tax policy.
And I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
So let me ask you a question from a professional standpoint, right?
Yes,
Because
sir.
this is your field.
Yes, sir.
To counter what Mark said,
Sure.
are the tax laws set up to benefit the people with more money or less money? In a very simple term, who gets the most benefits, job creators or employees? Let me make it more plain.
Job creators, by and large, have always got more benefits from tax law.
Exactly. So no matter what happens in a tax law, bro, the top people will always get the most benefit out of it because they can play with more assets, they can move money around, they can write shit off. If you're an employee, you don't just get to write off all
don't
kinds of
forget
stuff.
one important fact: they can go global now, so therefore
Right.
they don't even have to stay here in the United States.
Due to
And that's what
Democrat
most
policy.
U.S. corporations have done under Clinton, a Democratic president.
NAFTA. And this is another thing. So the tariffs, right, that Trump implemented. Are you guys familiar with the tariffs?
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts?
It's going to do exactly what Kamala Harris says it's going to do. It's going to put an undue burden on the American consumer because Americans are not going to sit up here and all of a sudden switch to products that they're already ordering from Amazon on a regular basis, right? To American products that are not even being produced, right? They're going to pay more. That's a tax on me, you, your mother, your children, and future generations to come. Those tariffs are going to do nothing but exacerbate inflation that we're already dealing with.
So to that end, I speak on tax policy and not necessarily, although tariffs are a form of taxation at the import level. I kind of, I guess I want to say, allow the economists to speak to that. And what I've seen what the economists say, as it relates to the tariff policy is that the money that it'll bring in, it would create a deficit. Now, speaking of understanding how politics works, a lot of times when your side speaks, it gives you a bias. So let's just say this is a right-wing economist as opposed to a left-wing economist.
Correct.
What I'm seeing is a lot of right-wing economists are saying very similar things to moderates and left-wing economists about the tariff policy. And so I'm gonna be honest with you again, Monte. That's not my strong suit to speak to that. But what I'm saying is when I'm looking at the data and things being presented or things being said by the experts, they're saying there's going to be a deficit because there's going to be less revenue.
Yeah.
And then it's going to leave us at a spot where we already currently are to have more spending, be a little more than that deficit. So I really can't speak to that. So
and I respect that. So I'm gonna break it down from a Louisiana education. I used to run a trucking company for 5 years, so I'm very familiar when it comes to transport. And we did a little bit of port work, so I understand import and export. So I'll make this very simple for those out there. The reason why these economists and you'll have skewed views is because of their political affiliation, because really this is very simple. If we are the number one consumer. And when I say we, I don't mean black people. I'm talking about Americans.
Americans. Yeah.
Okay, so there is no foreign corporation who does not want our business. So what Trump said is, y'all keep chumping us on these trade deals, and we got to pay y'all more money than what y'all paying us. So what I'm going to do is I'm extorting y'all boys. I'm putting a tariff on to say that if you want to sell your products in America, you're going to have to pay up, or you're going to have to buy your oil from us, because this is why he was doing those tariffs, to make them have to spend money with us in one capacity or another instead of just making money off of us. So there's no way that it would increase the deficit, because this is only net gains. It's only positive money. There's no loans.
But we pay the tariff
immediately. They pay the tariff. We don't pay the tariff. The other countries are paying the tariffs because we're charging them to sell their products in America, not for us to sell. We, like you said, we don't make nothing.
No, when you import
that's not how
goods,
tariffs
you pay
work,
the
brother.
tariff.
That's not how tariffs work.
When they're importing into America,
right? When you import
Amazon, right?
Increase on the
hold
price
on,
of the good
hold on. Let me
coming
just say
in.
this, Mark, and then I'll let you go. And then Monte, let me let you get back on because I agree with what you're saying in theory. But from what I understand, and let's get to the we ain't even gotta argue about it. Everybody just lay out their situation and we can, I guess, look it up, right? But from what I understand as it relates to tariffs, right? When you're paying a tariff, the reason why it's isolation is because that's what you're saying. Like, we want to make sure that America's not getting screwed, is you disincentivize imports coming in so we can do business here. So when you disincentivize the imports coming in, the American company is paying the tariff as to what is coming into the country. That's what's making that's what's disincentivizing us to.
So there were multiple tariffs. So he had some, for example, for the manufacturers of cars who wanted to take, who've already taken their facilities outside of America. He's saying he's going to charge them a tariff to bring their products in unless they manufacture the products in America. Who does that help? The average American who need a job. A lot of these cities like Detroit who lived off of car manufacturing, that whole industry is gone because they've taken all the major factories overseas. So to those people who are in America but make your product overseas, he's putting a tariff on them. But we won't. That would make sense for the Americans. However, if you're Hyundai or if you're some foreign company already, you pay a tariff to sell your product here, as you should, because this ain't your land. The same way we would if we were selling our products over there.
Before you step in,
that's
Mark,
just a common sense American plan.
No, that makes sense if that's what's happening. But from what I'm saying is, what I understand is these tariffs will be put on the American companies because that's how tariffs. That's what
there'll be a conflict of interest there. I mean, if that's the case.
Yeah. So, but that's number one. Number two, and Mark, I guess you look it up, and Monte, if you can, y'all kind of sort that out. But the thing I wanted to make initially, I'm not sure if y'all knew this, but initially, and I believe it was because of the tariffs. Initially, Trump bailed out white farmers during his first administration to the tune of like billions of dollars because of this trade policy, right? 99% of that money went to white farmers when they did the study.
Understandable. Understood.
When the Biden
I don't like you, but
right. But when the Biden administration got in there, we can look this up. $2 billion went to black farmers because they were dealing with a lot of discrimination in agriculture. So when we talk about specific to black people, right, the majority of the money, 99% of it, went to white folks based on this information. And then when the opposite regime came in, when black people weren't getting no money from the stimulus because the crops was too expensive and we needed to get, obviously, American goods in terms of our food source to be grown, $2 billion was given to black folks. So I just want to be clear on the effect of what I believe was tariff policy, because that's what we're talking about. I just don't want to be bringing up stuff to be saying, oh, he did this with black folks, this with white folks. I believe that.
So I just want to make it clear. So this is what it says. So Trump has variously proposed a general tariff of 10% and 20% on all imported goods in order to pull investment into the U.S. and bolster domestic industry. So he being clear on, if you're importing it to America, those people pay the tariff. Because think about it, just like in taxes, right? You pay for the employee. This is a benefit to your company. So there's tax advantages and things, but however, that's for you to pay, not the employee. So if you're the one selling this product, the Americans ain't finna pay your tariff. You lucky to sell to us. So you pay the tariff because you want to do money in this marketplace. And it's gonna cost you. Okay, I'll make it even more real. Y'all remember the port strikes, right? Did you hear what those gentlemen said? They said they were tired of foreign companies taking over the ports and trying to automate everything and get rid of the jobs when none of these companies are American owned. The foreigners run these ports when it comes to import. How is that possible in America and we don't control shit? That don't make no sense. That's not an American first policy, bro.
Well, I got this one here from Axios, right?
Okay, all right, what you
this
got?
is Axios. You could Google this one. Axios,
Right.
AXIOS. How tariffs work, Trump, China, right?
Okay.
So it says the Trump administration used tariffs extensively, imposing them on a number of products from China and other countries. Trump's tariffs, which spiraled into a trade war, were intended to hurt China by limiting access to the U.S. markets and reining in the domestic trade deficit. But studies have concluded that the trade deficit continued to grow, and U.S. companies primarily paid for the tariffs. Now, if U.S. companies are paying for the tariffs, that's going to mean two things. Either the U.S. companies themselves are taking less of a profit, hurting the economy, or worse, they're taking the same profit and inflating the cost of their goods and putting that on the consumer. One study found, it continues, one study found that Trump's tariffs hurt rural areas, but were still popular with voters there. So people were voting for it, but it was hurting them at the same time. People got to understand that these companies are already taking huge profits. We have record profits for these corporations via the stock market, okay? They're killing it. The wages have been suppressed. They're not paying people what they used to pay them at a constant dollar amount, okay? They are not incentivized to stop bringing in these goods if those prices come in. They have the money. If they want to keep their profits up, all they have to do is put them prices higher on the American population, who really has no other choice since the U.S. is not producing anymore. But there was no evidence from Trump's tariff policies that there would be any change in American productivity in the 4 years that he was president. And I finish with this. In a recent Wall Street Journal, and this is from the same article, in a recent Wall Street Journal survey of 39 economists, not one expert poll approved of Trump's plan to put tariffs on all imported goods. Trump's
the tariff's still in place, right?
50%. What was that?
The tariff's still in place with the current administration, right?
Some of them. Tariffs. Remember, you said there was some.
Right, but so this is how you know what they saying is cap. If they was so bad, why would you keep any of these shits?
Because some of them
maybe some of them are working. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So let's just stick with that premise. Let's agree to that point then. Let's say some of them are working. So clearly, the main idea was not no off the wall bullshit. If it was good enough to stick around, no matter if it was 5 or 20, they kept some of them. We just agreed to that. So the premise of
inflation. We're still dealing with record inflation.
Okay. So here goes the part where people be disingenuous. What happened during Trump's term that changed everything?
We know COVID, and we know how that impacted.
Right there. So
we cannot judge him in the proper fashion because that was probably the biggest thing that happened in our generation when it comes to a health. So
in the history of the country.
Okay. So how can you judge the full economic impact when you know we got locked down, folks can't go nowhere? People, you see what I'm saying? That changed everything, bro.
But then can't. But he blames Biden. He blames Biden for inflation.
Of course, they're gonna blame each other.
Well,
they blame each other when
it comes from
they
the
both
act,
know the reason why the economy tanked, inflation was high, inflation hit record numbers in modern times is because of the supply chain constraints that resulted from COVID.
Correct.
However, what I will say is inflation is headed in the right direction since Biden.
Oh, nah.
It's been
Oh, damn, what happened?
Okay.
I think you had to tip them until you
them lines cut them off, but them lines cut them off. That's what it was.
My dog got juju out there.
This a no cap station. Hey, this is a no cap network. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mark. You were saying that.
I think he's trying to get back straight.
Okay, but I think his point was, and when he get back straight, let me just say this as it relates to that. I think that is a little.
We can't hear you, bro.
No, you on mute though. Because you saying
off mute, but I can't hear him.
Yeah. You back. You muted, bro.
Hey, leave it and come back in.
Yeah, leave it. But so while he doing that, so I think it's a slightly disingenuous. We have to say that no president would have had a situation where they could have completely solved COVID. Let me just put that on the table.
That's out the ordinary.
But again, when we make these choices and we making these decisions, they're usually binary decisions or they're in comparison to something.
Okay.
Right. So when I say that, this is what I mean. When we look at all the other industrialized nations that dealt with the same global pandemic, when we look at the effects, we were the worst in terms of how we managed the COVID pandemic as it related to deaths and as it related to employment, because it was mismanaged, given that the person in charge even said out of their own mouth that they knew the pandemic was worse than what it was, but out in public at first, they were saying it was the Kung flu, it came from China, it was a democratic hoax, it was going away during the summer. He said all these things, whether it came from China or not is immaterial to my point. What I'm saying is we cannot say that management was not important, because other countries by and large did better as it relates to them managing the issue. And so we have to lay blame there at some point when the man said out of his own mouth. See, if he would have just been like, I didn't believe this, somebody put a bioweapon on us, and he stuck to that, although I would have thought it was cap, that's one thing. But he literally told the reporter, hey, look, and this is what he does all the time. He plays with individuals as if they're children. So he treated us like kids, like we couldn't take the truth. So basically you placated us this whole time, acting like you didn't know this thing was as bad as it was. And so what I'm saying, with that being the case, yes, I cannot lay blame all the way at the foot of Trump. But if we are in comparison saying there were other leaders in administrations and heads of states that did a lot better than we did, then we have to kind of look at that as an issue that created the very issue we're talking about. Because inflation could be a lot less deadly if this individual would have took this thing a little more serious. Could we agree with that?
So the reason why I would disagree is the part where Trump did add to the inflation was he made the decision, well, not just him, but Congress, as well as him cheerleading it, made the decision to break bread, which was through the stimulus, which was through the SBA loans. Those things definitely added to inflation. But as a businessman, that had to be done. Like, there was no way people could not go to work for months on end or lose their businesses, some type of money.
So inflation does come at least a portion of it. You do let it
it does come from that. Yes, you can't be honest and say that that's not true. However,
that's all I'm saying. But I'm saying he made it worse by mismanaging the situation.
That's not mismanagement to me, though. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay. So let me just put it in plainer terms, like you did for me with the transportation. What I'm saying is, let's just say, for instance, we can look at the data, and it might be data we don't agree with, but let's just use it for the sake of the argument. All right. Let's say 1 million people died during COVID.
Yeah.
Let's say he did just as good a job as the president, or let's say Nigeria or South Korea, right? And they did 60% better. That means 60% of your workforce would still be here. That means 60% of your economy would probably still be here. And so you wouldn't have to infuse so much money into the economy, because we're agreeing what caused the inflation. Is that something you could agree with at the premise? You might not agree with the point, but I'm saying if we could agree that if we look up the data, the United States handled the COVID pandemic the worst in terms of employment and deaths, and if somebody did a better job, and we would use those percentages, that if it wasn't as bad based on that mismanagement, we wouldn't have as much inflation.
And so I do agree that there was mismanagement. My only add to that would be it wasn't an executive branch mismanagement, because we had states, every state, like y'all in Florida. Florida didn't react the same way that Texas did, or New York. Okay, you see what I'm saying? So that ain't got nothing to do with the president. This was a political war going on to exacerbate certain issues that was out of control of just one branch of government.
But you do agree from the head in terms of funding and guidance and leadership, how people respond personally. Like, people was in basically injecting bleach because he said it, and people died because of that.
You know, like, what people was also doing? They was getting that
jab.
But just because they said it. And history shows us now that was never needed. It was actually worse for you by taking.
Listen, check this out, brother. I'm a vegan. So what you think I did?
Oh, so you know what it is. So
I didn't take it. So okay. I didn't.
But
so
didn't they push it to us though?
So I'm not anti-vax or vax. I'm just saying I didn't do it because I understand the ramifications of what you put in your body.
Correct.
Right. So all I'm saying is rhetoric matters, and I'm saying, as you stated, because he was slightly against until he said, "All right, we got to do something about this." I'm mixed on Trump with that because at first he was like, "Don't do it," but then he took credit for the vaccine.
Right.
So there is a mixture there, and that's what makes for me Trump somebody that's a little difficult to deal with because the unstable nature. Because sometimes it just seems like he in the wind with it. Like what makes sense at the moment. Because if for you to be so hard adamantly against the vaccine, but then you become the father of it, it's diametrically opposed. You get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, and I think that's strictly due. That was a genius political move because to expose Trump to want to have to deal with the crisis, this is nowhere near in his wheelhouse. Tax cuts and economic plan, yeah, he can do that all day. But managing this, he would have had no idea. He's never been a governor, senator. He's never dealt with a natural. You see what I'm saying? So this exposed his weakness in that fashion. However, we do know that this was an agenda by our government at large to harm the citizens, period. Like this ain't had nothing to do with.
Talk to me about that. Talk to me.
Okay, so we just talked about the jab. That jab was not good for nobody. Who made money off that? Companies like Pfizer, same people who are backing the Democratic Party like crazy. All of them, the big boys who are in big pharma, who are the enemy of the people, were backing this, and they made it worse because they profited the most off of it. That got nothing to do with the executive branch of government. It's just the facts. They didn't create.
No, you're right. But this goes back to progressivism in terms of what me and Mark are saying. Because guess what progressives want to do? Destroy and get rid of big pharma. See, liberals want to play patty cake with them and try to say, well, we'll lower the cost of prescription drugs. We'll do these things. Progressives don't believe in none of that. We believe that no, there should be no negotiating with individuals that are price gouging you and creating profit over people. So this goes back to that initial point.
Shut them down. Shut them down.
Kill that shit because that's what's causing the problem. As we agree.
I got no disagreement with that. Mac, what you got, bro?
I mean, of course, when we talk about all these different things in politics, nobody's going to be fully happy. You can't make everybody happy in politics.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I'm not going to play in totality. I'm not into idol worship of either one of the parties. Let me make sure I say that, you know what I mean? Because sometimes it seems though, and I just want to ask y'all this too, you know, with all the politics as we start to talk about all these different things that people that can go into detail about, and I know B, you know, that's why I invited you to come on this conversation. I know we put it out there to get attention. And shout out to everybody that's live listening to the conversation. And Mark, too, is a guest of B. You know, when people that's labeled black in this conversation of men, and shout out to Miss Angela, she fell off. I was trying to get other women, too, but Miss Angela, I knew she would pull up at least and add into it. But and when we see these conversations that's taking place, when we go through the details of the politics and certain things and other things around it, the black person today, how
I like where you're going with that, Monte. I see you though.
Yeah.
I see you. Little sneaky nigga. Boy, I see you.
That's how you know I did my research now.
Well, go ahead. I see you over
there. How do you guys see it on your side of what Kamala and dealing with the people on the black of benefiting from all these politics? Because obviously she, you know, we put it in the title, so I want to always bring it back to how do y'all think about that too? But then we can go back to this after that. After, you know, I just want to ask y'all after our conversation tonight, what you think so far about that part of it.
Like how it affects us, like the politics of the Democratic Party, period. From the standpoint of what's being proposed and what they seem to champion, like going back to the point I was making about the Black Economic Alliance, when we think about things like healthcare, criminal justice, war, very broad topics, funding of public education. These are the things that usually get brought up. We get specific to the Black community when we start talking about HBCUs, which is public education, or reparations. But by and large, when you just ask questions that are generally applicable to most people, right? The things I just named, labor, and as it relates to unions, Monte brought that up and stuff like that. By and large, when you look at those that seem to be champions and have put pen to paper to deal with that specifically, since the conversation we've been having since 1965 forward, it has just seemed like it has been more of a priority to not only just pander, because they do a lot of that. So I'm going to be clear. Let me not act like it does not happen. But pen to paper has been put towards certain things that are in more of our vested interest, which I believe public education is. I think more access to healthcare is. I think dealing with criminal justice on a level that's actually tangible is. So I would just go in that direction, broadly speaking. It would be better for us to get into specific policies like I see Monte about to do, but that the Democratic Party has been more in line with those things that, again, like I told you, that study showed that people were more interested in Black people having access to capital, Black people having access to healthcare, Black people, with the equity thing for Black men. All those things have been things that were tested, and that's what they proposed. So that's what I have to say to that.
Mark, and then Monte, you can read this joint on this, which you want to get to. Go ahead, Mark. Is there anything you want to say for me? Because I want to make sure everybody included in the conversation. I want to do time frame of our convo.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. You're good.
Yeah. I mean, listen. Again, I don't side with liberals on most policy when it comes to, especially international, local. I don't side with them. I don't like the way that their approach. I don't like the way they let corporations get off. In all honesty, I'd rather the two-party system in this country be liberals versus progressives. I think that would be ideal. So when it comes to, Trump is just a non-factor. For me, between Democrats and Republicans, when Democrats got Blacks to switch over and become a 93% voter block for them, there was things, tangibles that were on the table that Black people said, okay, we're moving over to this side from the Republican side. Republicans are going to have to earn the Black vote if they want it. They're going to have to put some policy up that is going to directly impact Black people positively before Black people move over and say, by and large, we are going to vote for this party. And I don't think they've put enough work. I don't think they've put enough consideration in. And I don't think they really care about the benefit of Black people when you see that they're doing everything in their powers to gut DEI, gut the policy, don't even talk about reparations. The Black Republicans, right, as far as reparations are concerned, are the people that are jumping on stages and saying white people should have got reparations after the Civil War. You know what I'm saying? And that's what reparations should be paid, right? The buddy from South Carolina. It is insanity over there. They don't have their shit together as it relates to Black people and Black policy. They're actively doing things to do harm to the Black community, and they're campaigning on it. Full immunity for police. Going after DEI, going after affirmative action. You look at Project 2025, you see it. You look at Agenda 47, you see it. They don't deserve our vote. I don't have a problem. I am just like Brandon said. It's permanent policy. I don't got no permanent friends. I don't like them. If Black men could be racist, I probably would be considered incredibly racist. But I just don't feel like they've done enough. Can they do something? Absolutely. Am I looking at what they're doing? Absolutely. But they haven't earned it yet.
All right, when you say that though, right? I mean, and then Monte, real quick. You want to, Monte? Go ahead. I know I just said that. I'm keep on.
No, so I just wanted to. So, without question, once again, is why I keep explaining my position. When Trump first came out, I was completely against. When he first ran the first time, I was against everything this man was saying. But the number one reason why was I just took what the media said, the little clippings, all this other shit, right? However, I lived obviously through his presidency and was in business during this time. And the stuff that I started finding out that was in place that he and his administration specifically put out, no doubt trumps anything, no pun intended, that any Democrat has ever put out to help Black people. So here's one of the major ones, this opportunity zone. So it came from that Tax and Jobs Act, right? So long story short, this helps for investment into areas that are considered low impoverished areas. And by doing these programs, whoever, now this is the part where it gets tricky. Most of our people didn't even know this program existed. However, it was meant to target mostly Black areas, especially downtown, for you to be able to invest in real estate.
Low income.
Exactly.
Right.
So
by the Dolphin Stadium, B, you know what I'm saying?
By a lot of major Atlanta downtown.
I'm very familiar with the
Okay. So check it out. When I came out there to Lauderdale, Mac brought me through a brother. He got a situation through this program. I know plenty of people where I'm in Macon got something through this program. All right. Right. So this right here was meant to help the same communities that we all come from. To where I saw this, I know this to be a fact. This ain't nothing that I heard or just read. I've seen it in real time in practice where it was available for reinvestment to do some major things in your own community that you didn't need an outsider for. You could have got your own funding, put your own contractors to use, and make this happen with the tax incentives to back it up once you completed your project. So this right here was another facet to show that, man, Buddy was really laying down policies that affected all different types of Americans, including Black ones. Sure. That we had to take it back. He never ran off reparations. He never ran off saying, I'm Black, vote for me, I'm your friend. He said, I'm a businessman, and I think all these politicians is capped, and they living off the people's money. I got my own money. Let me show you what I can do. And he stood on a lot of the principles that he said that he would deliver when it comes to economics, because that's what he ran on the most, right? Mm-hmm. Never pretended to be no politician and know how to make people love each other and all this other shit, hate crimes and all that. He talking about the money. Our economy is being robbed by other countries. So
and just to mention, hey,
go ahead.
Hey, Monte, just to mention too, in that paragraph, he extended it from the original opportunity zones originally in lower incomes in North America.
Yeah.
Right underneath it says 2018. It says there are 8,764 opportunity zones in 50 states and 5 U.S. possessions, including American Samoa, Guam, Northern Mariana Islands, and Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. So when people be saying he's racist about even the Puerto Ricans, they're not giving
he put that money out there for
he put that money out there for them to do their thing too. So like people be just like the rhetoric is why I want to go back to this again, is that I think a lot of people today, even though we're talking about Black people, there's a lot of people that have a different understanding in their rooting of being American and how they look at their position as being American. And at the same time, the understanding that
you gotta drop off.
Okay. That is the end anyway.
There's other groups that also could be labeled, dark skin, pale, or whatever, ethnically, race, and national origin, that are benefiting from a lot of things that are coming from what we call the Democratic Party situation of foreign policies. And the Republican Party is tight on those things, and some Americans would to agree, no matter their I'm gonna say race, creed, or ethnicity, that they're not going to align themselves with those foreign policies that's benefiting those that come in to these opportunity zones that they're talking about now, that is being impacted by most of these same areas that those opportunity zones were at, that foreigners are now, coming in and getting tax-free situations. You know what I mean?
No, so this is again. I don't have no problem with this policy at all, and I feel like it was targeted at least at the very minimum minority communities. If we're not going to say just Black, at the very least.
Minority, right? Non-biased.
At the very
non-biased. Non-biased, right?
Yeah, at the very least. If not just Black, but at the very least, those that are us or close to us. So I would absolutely agree with that. the thing that I would also say, which I think, conversations like these got to kind of happen offline too. And I think if y'all would have me back, I would love to come back and have another conversation.
For sure.
But my thing also is when we talk about blackness in its totality, what I hear a lot oftentimes is, and it was outrageous for her to say out loud, because even white folks don't say shit like this. It's outrageous for her to say it, although it's true, that I can't do anything for black people specifically. She said it came out of her mouth. So I don't deal in fairy tales, right? My thing as we address Americans in rhetoric, I just want to be very clear as it relates to Trump, right? So are y'all familiar with Tina Peters?
Tina Peters. The name sounds familiar, but I don't know from what.
Okay, so I'm gonna just give y'all a few names and a few things that I think that we just have to be conscious of, because sometimes it doesn't touch us and sometimes we don't, because we're using the term American, which is very important, and then we're getting back to our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about being American, right? Tina Peters is somebody that believed in the big lie, what is being called, in terms of like the election being stolen. Tina Peters is going to be in jail for 9 years for being a Republican that was actually caught trying to steal the election in Colorado. Something happened similar in New Mexico. Guy went to jail. What I'm saying is the rhetoric created has a lasting and residual effect. And so sometimes it's very dangerous of us to act like it doesn't. So this is just one example in terms of our democracy, people not having faith in it and then going out based on this ideology and getting themselves in trouble. She's not the only one, but she's at this point basically the poster child of being locked up for being caught doing the very thing they were saying Democrats were doing. So that's just democracy itself. When we talk about what was said just yesterday about Puerto Ricans, about what happened in Springfield, Ohio with the Haitians and things of that nature, although they said it was coming from foreign individuals, the bomb threats, the hospital threats, the rhetoric created an environment where people had to actually deal with not sending their children to school, not getting care at hospitals, being afraid to leave their house, wanting to now leave the community that they were legally asked to be in, because guess what? We have to look at immigration in many different facets. And one way we could take this replacement theory, which has always been a thing of white folks, but now we're starting to come into our community and say, well, they're going to come and take our jobs, or they're coming to replace us. But by and large, this integration was asked by this community, because when you look at the industrial Midwest, oftentimes these places become ghost towns because those jobs have either been outsourced or their factories are outdated.
Right.
And so these people were asked to come to that community. Being asked to come to that community legally, now they're being basically terrified out of their community based on this rhetoric. So that's another thing when we talk about the things that are what I believe to be anti-American. So it's anti-American to
Can I
be
make a point real quick?
Against democracy. It's anti-American to be against legal immigration, because that's what our country is founded on.
Whoa.
Can I make a point real quick? Can I make a point real quick?
Go ahead, Ms. Ashley.
Go ahead, Ms. Ashley. Go ahead.
Yeah. Because you speak about what's happening currently to the Haitians in terms of some comments that's been made, and I'm not going to repeat them. Well, on the same token, the same thing was occurring with the Asians. And guess what? They got policies specifically for their group. Now, I can guarantee you, if this rhetoric continues to play, you will see policy specifically for Haitians.
It's on the way.
It's already there.
Yeah, it's on the way.
There you go.
They already passed a policy for the Haitian hate crime situation specifically. Go look it up. Let's Google it.
But see, this is what keeps happening. We keep going back, and I understand what y'all saying, because I understand y'all position about our economic flow as all of us can identify or do identify.
It's a status.
I'm not in disagreement with that part of it. What I'm saying is it is very problematic to not understand the ramifications of this rhetoric. I'm about to get to another point, which is, y'all know who Caesar Sayoc is?
Nah.
Caesar Sayoc mailed 20 pipe bombs to Trump critics, and based on Trump's rhetoric was the reason why he was doing that. In the Walmart shooting in El Paso, Texas, when you look at these people's manifestos, what the person says specifically is there is a Hispanic invasion at the border, and I have to essentially deal with that. Now, I am of no imagination that the border is not an issue. But when you look at the way a George Herbert Walker Bush or Ronald Reagan discussed immigration, Obama even had a bill on the floor to have comprehensive immigration reform that didn't go through. Matter of fact, shit, Biden just did. But the rhetoric is causing people to get hurt. The FBI got ran up on by somebody that was a Trump supporter based on this rhetoric. And this is very anti-American.
So check that out. Hey, so let's talk about rhetoric, right? I know of a man who been called Hitler. They say this boy finna take black folks to slavery. I seen a man get shot at on stage because of rhetoric.
Based on his rhetoric, though.
So he called himself Hitler?
Based on his rhetoric.
No. So, okay, so first, let's lay a baseline level. So you mean to tell me that there's no rhetoric been put out for the other side against Donald Trump that would make him look terrible and make somebody want to murder him? Think about the things that are said about this man in the media.
So why is it being said about him? Was that said about John McCain or Mitt Romney?
So neither one of them is getting the type of press that this man is getting. So we just stick to the facts.
The reason why is because what he's saying, a hit dog can't holler. If your own vice president is saying that you're Hitler, if you're repeating things that Hitler said, if you literally went to Madison Square Garden yesterday, somewhere you know you're not gonna win, to basically do the exact same thing Hitler did.
Oh no, that's symbolism. Hey, you got that from the media, bro. That's not true. I watched the whole thing.
The dude is a comedian by the name of Tony.
Listen to me. The symbolism of it is what I'm telling you. I'm not talking about what happened in
Puerto Rico.
Trump from New York.
Trash and all that. That was the comedian that said that they're connecting once again to Trump when Trump passes this bill, which will conflate as he just went on TV.
But Trump took talking about
Puerto Rico.
Trump took 2 years to give
Puerto Ricans earlier. They know that
support for Maria. 2 years. 2 years, and then went over there and threw paper towels. He didn't get them people support where there was no electricity, no clean water for 2 years.
So we talking about support of a natural disaster.
Wait a minute. We talking about optics here, right? Let's talk about the optics of Obama.
No, we're not talking about optics. We're not talking about optics.
Water in Flint, Michigan. You want to talk about
optics? We're talking about Trump in Puerto Rico.
No.
We just said
you're talking about how those people were disrespected. I'm talking about how those people in that town hall meeting with Obama were disrespected.
Which people?
Flint, Michigan.
In Flint,
Michigan.
With the lead water pipe, all that was going on. Still, I don't know if it's fixed yet.
No. Joe Biden, they and Gretchen Whitmer have dealt with that issue. That's why you don't hear about it no more.
No, that's not true at all. Not true at all. Just like Lowe's County. That's not true at all. None of that has been addressed.
Okay. I'm gonna put it up.
Yeah, that's and then we're talking about response. Matter of fact, the reason how we even started engaging was because of the response of this current administration in North Carolina,
which is all lies.
So it can be lies about the administration you like, but it can't be about Trump. See, this is the part where I be coming at odds because I do agree the media lies, but they lie on both sides.
I'm gonna tell you the lies. The lies are things like the $750 is a loan. They're going to take your property. These are the lies being perpetuated, keeping people away from the very money that could save their lives. A man called in and said his father would not take this money because he was a Trump supporter, because he was told that if he took that money, knowing he had no money, it was a loan. And if he didn't pay it back, they would take his property. That is a flat out lie.
Okay, so let's just stop there. Let's say the
loan flat out lie. And guess who told that lie?
Hey, that's cool. It's cool. Let's say the loan part is not true.
It isn't. Let's say not. No, let's just say it isn't.
Okay, bet. The problem was $750, not the loan part. Because $750 can't help you do a damn thing if you just lost
Who the
everything.
fuck gonna do with $750?
So let's address that. So this is a messaging thing. This is a messaging thing now. Let's address that. So the messaging should have been, because this is what happened. And this is what happens with Trump. People act like if you got two parents, right? That if that one parent ain't doing nothing and the other parent doing a little something, that you can get on the parent that ain't doing nothing or did just a little bit of the same very thing. Now, let me make that make all sense. During the Trump administration, the Obama administration, and the Clinton administration, I'm just going back in years, there was no such thing as the $750. It didn't exist during the Trump administration. But you know what did exist? Emergency things for repairs, emergency things for other things that are wrapped up in other applications. So this is a Democratic problem because they don't know how to message. They should have came out and said, you know what? Because we know it takes a lot of time for people to get the proper restoration as it relates to the FEMA response and your relief. That takes time. That takes red tape. That takes paperwork. We will do something for you right now. That's the $750 that didn't happen during the Trump administration. So how the fuck can he come and talk about $750 when he didn't give anything, when the Biden administration is doing the exact same thing as the Trump administration, but now they're saying immediately we'll give you $750 for food, water, and clothing.
So do you remember when Mayorkas and company came in and said that?
Hold on, let's address that first though.
I mean, so the point of the matter is we talking about a situation to where
so
there is no
better or worse than the last administration though, because that's the point I'm at. Because
there is no
about this administration and you didn't do at least what they did and you talking shit about it. That's manipulative.
He's done. So this is the thing. $750 is not a mandate. You don't have to be FEMA and say I can only give $750. They got a certain amount of funds, and what they had left is what they could give, which amounted to $750 a person.
No, that's policy to get a $750.
No, it wasn't policy.
No,
that was
the budget.
What's the policy?
They were running out
What's
of the
policy?
money because FEMA already had allocated a certain amount of money that's going out to what we call asylum.
Let's use this logic. So why did they at least give $750 during the Trump administration?
Trump administration to who? Who are you talking about? What disaster?
To Matthew, to Maria, to whomever. It was hurricanes happening then. What are you talking about?
But he was in Puerto Rico. You say he was throwing paper
I
towels
left Florida to go to New York because Maria was so bad in my area. So why didn't they give $750 to the people then? Since we saying that, oh, is money being running out? It was a bunch of hurricanes happening during his administration. That's why he threw essentially paper towels to the people in Puerto Rico. Because Maria devastated the area.
But what
so that hurricane ain't like the one that just happened in North Carolina.
Wait. In Pacific of what we're talking about.
Irma and Dorian and these hurricanes weren't devastating.
Hey, those people had a lot of different relief that came from FEMA.
They did get FEMA though. Right.
This is the thing.
All
FEMA
of them got
paid.
FEMA. And guess what? The FEMA budget in 2023 and 2024 was bigger than the budget back in 2017.
And that's the problem. So if the budget is bigger, how they get less money?
Right.
What happened? You keep saying they're getting less money. They're getting the same stuff plus $750.
But they mentioned that they're running out of money because of how they allocated their money towards other things.
No, y'all making that up because y'all think that's immigrant money.
Listen, that's what they're saying, bro.
The Department of Defense deal with that.
No,
the Department of Homeland Security got multiple. The Department of Homeland Security, Matt, has multiple agencies that they have money. FEMA was given $20 billion.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
The point being with that.
Where's the money being allocated to though? That money.
Disaster relief. $20 billion.
And what else? And something else.
No, that's the narrative y'all keep putting out.
No, that's what it says on the document. It says the disaster relief also includes asylum and refuge. People that are coming from asylum and refuge from foreign places who are going through a disaster, which is tied to war in their areas, which is tied to the
y'all making this political, bro.
This is political. This is a political conversation.
But that's ain't political. If somebody,
they're allocating money outside of just the narrative. Only thing I'm pointing out is that FEMA's money that's allocated with whoever time frame of election and who is in power, Republican or Democrat, that FEMA since its origin has been allocated in a way where money is allocated, when you research it, to more than just disasters tied to Americans in America. It's tied to also foreign things such as asylum and refuge and disaster that's tied to war in places that people, America, especially Democrats, Biden can tell you this, Council of Foreign Relations, but that are dealing with disasters that's happening right now. Like the people in Ukraine, they're going through a disaster because of the war. They're giving out money to come on, bro. This is tied to these things.
So let me.
Hey, this buddy right here. See,
y'all talking about the money running out. That's not what I'm addressing. So let me address what I'm addressing, and we'll talk about the money running out. So first and foremost, if you go back, Trump said the immigration issue was $150 billion issue. Where do you think that money was coming from? That was being spent during his administration. Where that money was coming from? The same place, the Department of Homeland Security. Now, the Department of Homeland Security has multiple different agencies. Multiple. Y'all keep bunching the FEMA money with other DHS and Department of Defense budgetary money, which it is not the same. If you run a business and you have $1 million for marketing, and then you have $1 million for research and development, you don't just go over there and say, you know what, I'm gonna take that money from
out the pot.
Right.
Correct.
I understand that. We're not. I did not say that. I didn't say that.
None of us did.
That's not what I said.
No, but that's exactly
the person who in charge said it.
No, I said FEMA, which most people think about, which is dealing with emergency situations. Since you brought up Homeland Security, I've had some interacting, with Homeland. I know Homeland Security deals with things dealing with here, not foreign places. Disasters in most people's cases, and I'm saying that I understand that it's not just tied to just the American disasters that take place, tied to that any of these opportunity zones that's being brought up earlier from Puerto Rico or any other places tied to being controlled or underneath United States jurisdiction. In the manner of any disaster that takes place underneath the jurisdiction, FEMA is allocated with funds every year to deal with those disasters. All I'm saying is that there's also money that's being allocated out of that same department. I didn't say DHS. I didn't say all the other government entities that money is being allocated for every year. I'm talking about specifically the FEMA organization and how there's funds literally allocated for people who call immigrants or people that's going through asylum or refuge from a disaster situation tied to wars and different things from foreign nations, and they're coming into this country.
Is that new?
That same thing. We know it's not new.
Okay, so then what's the point being made?
Well, the points being made is that how the funds, like you said, were allocated. And when Trump made the actual statement about the funds being allocated a certain way, people jumped on the bandwagon because they didn't understand what we're talking about right now, about how funds are allocated to all the different departments and how it's not just, the FEMA is not just tied to disasters in America. Funds can run out because they're dealing with other things this year that's tied to foreign relations. That's what I'm saying.
But you do know why, truthfully speaking, why he said that he could speak from that place, but it didn't happen under this administration, because that's what he did.
Who?
Trump literally
Trump brought in the Ukraine?
No, ain't help no migrants.
No. Trump, I didn't say no. See, we talking narrative. Yeah, let's not talk about narratives. Let's talk about money. Let's talk about money.
Yeah.
FEMA money in the opposite direction was taken to deal with migrants, just not in a positive way.
You talking about like the wall?
If we're talking about funds, let's have a conversation about funds. So Trump only knows that could be done because he did it. He took the FEMA funds, not no other funds, and took those funds and used them to house migrants, to put them in a place where they could be detained and deported back. By the Biden administration, the money that was specific to FEMA disaster relief has not in any way, shape, or form been used to assist migrants. Disaster relief. I'm not talking about the FEMA organization we talking about disaster relief because that's what we keep connecting it to. Let's stop doing that. If FEMA is an organization that deals with multiple different disasters, and now we're tying it to Hurricane Milton and we're tying it to Hurricane Helene, that is disingenuous. That is not why that money ran out. It didn't run out because we were giving it to migrants. That's not why it ran out. And that's the point people keep trying to make.
It's not what I said. That's why I want to go to the White House. Monte, can you pull this up?
Yeah, hold on.
I'm going to leave it there,
and
then we
wrap
can
it
go.
up.
Yeah,
Man,
we
I
can wrap it
appreciate
up.
y'all though, man. This was spirited and good.
You know what I mean? I don't want you to
that's what
know
we do, bro.
from our position of conversation, dealing with any debate of politics of either side of things, of people's positions, if they either vote Democratic or Republican. I also, and Buddy Mark, shout out to Mark that pulled up too. I'm gonna let Miss
Shout out
Angela
to
shout out to her. You know,
Miss Angela. I appreciate you straightening me on a few things. I appreciate everybody and their perspective.
My bad. I wanted to say, B, that the reason I've heard a lot of it. I'm not saying we did it here. We didn't. In our discourse tonight, in the different positions about the parties and politics.
Sure.
Overall, though, black folk and who they should vote for should not be based off of being black. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely not. That's foolish.
All right. So all this, you black, you supposed to be Democrat. We should not suggest that that's the ideal of what we should be thinking.
You know what I think we should do? Let me give y'all what I think we should do. Let me give y'all the policy prescription or our prescription. I think what we should all do, I think we should do a mass exodus to become MPAs. We shouldn't be Democrats nor Republicans. And we should do that during an election season and then see, because they watching the data, they're going to see a bunch of black people do that and watch how these policies change from either side. Because that's what we're about, right? We're about saying where we should get our vote from. So when they start seeing them registrations dwindle, if it's so many people that are black folks that are MPA, at that point, I think it's not going to be necessarily revolutionary change, but I think that's the thing that will get their attention, because they look at those registrations to see who and how they can turn them out. And they know if you black, white, voted before, voted in the last election, voted 2 elections ago. That's what I believe the prescription is, because I'm with Malcolm X on that swing vote idea. Okay. I'm with him on that. But what I'm saying,
I think I agree with you on that. We should be independent.
So I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, I think that
black
that there is a lot of anti-black, which we didn't get into, which is fine, because I don't want to hog the mic, things that are happening. Although there are some pro-black things that have been mentioned. We didn't talk about the First Step Act, but we talked about opportunity zones, which is in favor of that. There's some things I don't like about, bro. But I can't lie and say that's not a dope policy, because it is, and and as you said, it's one of the dopest that don't get talked about. Correct. And that's and to be honest, like I could go a step further, even though I should not be, capping for somebody I'm not going to vote for and I don't necessarily like. But the truth is the truth. When we talk about even HBCU funding,
correct.
Obama started that. Trump took it a little higher, and now Biden took it a little higher. Now everybody kind of going in that direction. So I got to give a man credit where credit is due.
And that museum.
Huh?
And that museum funding, that African American acknowledgement of the museum. That was
trying to make it permanent. So again, I'm not in.
Don't look too racist to me.
Right. He don't look too racist for black folk to be telling other black folk, just because they voting in a Republican ideal, that they're automatically, they're Trumpsters. No, wait, what I'm saying is,
you got to define racism.
All I'm saying is, in the beginning, in the history of black folk that were here in that time frame of Abraham Lincoln and their heritage, to the ones that are coming in 1965, should understand that people in this country have been a part of the Republican Party because of fighting against slavery in the first place. And at the same time now, people have evolved. We're not even fighting about slavery no more, really, but we're fighting about an ethnic group of people specifically that's tied to that time frame that did not get certain things that we know were talked about during the civil rights era that Martin Luther King spoke about, him being a Republican himself, as was mentioned, as the elder said earlier. And I'm not saying that everybody's on that position. All I'm saying is, I don't agree with the narrative, whatever position people take, that we should be saying that just because you're looking what we call on the screen tonight, that you're supposed to tell me I'm only supposed to vote this way.
No, I don't think that's anybody's position from tonight. I just think it's anti-black to say that people that was protesting on the football field should be fired and called motherfuckers. That's anti-black to me.
There's a lot of anti-black things on
right. So, but this could be considered racist. That's what I'm saying. So the things that you're saying are pro-black that we've discussed, but I'm saying this is anti-black, which has a lot to do with like the First Amendment. What I'm saying is, if you're saying you need to rough people up in terms of policing, you know who we're talking about in terms of policing. You need to make sure you don't take it easy on certain people.
Hey, sometimes you do gotta rough these niggas up. Boy.
No, man, I ain't. No,
yeah.
no, I ain't.
It's some monsters and some gorillas.
To me, that's anti-blackness.
Look. See, this
stop and frisk, anti-black.
Hey, I get that. Look, it's a lot of things.
Tell me, stop and frisk, anti-black.
Hey, but when there's good and bad that come with being progressive and black in America. Right. That's like there's good and bad that comes with being black and liberal. Just like there's good and bad with the blacks that are conservative. We have many different blacks in this country that think differently.
I'm talking about
and all of them are affected by the anti-black thing you just spoke about.
We got to close though. We hitting that 3 hour.
I appreciate you. My bad. Get this on the board because we talking fast.
Let's go get this because we've been. It's a good conversation, but we had 3 hours.
It's a good one. Yeah, but on real talk, no, I appreciate that pulled up. But this last link, and I'm gonna send it to you, B. It's all from NPR. Obviously, it talks about that last thing we were talking about and how the White House, and it says 44 billion emergency funding, which is obviously tied to all the different departments, obviously, but still tied to FEMA. It obviously was tied to Ukraine getting 24 billion out of that 44 that's mentioned at the top, and then how it's obviously, as it says right there, the request faces resistance from some Republicans because the Republicans didn't want the tax money going out into helping what Ukraine was dealing with at this time period. I'm not saying that FEMA isn't tied to both parties, just like how the Project 25 foundation is tied to many parties, like Obama did. You know what I mean? And how people take from each one of these things to benefit their narrative as politicians. But we have to think for ourselves autonomously how you label black in America today and how you vote. Just keep your mind open, keep your head on the swivel, and read all these things. That's all I'm saying to you, B, as we agree to disagree about, but I ain't mad at you. You know how it is, number love. Miss Angela.
All respect. Miss
Angela, you there?
All respect.
I'm still here. I'm still here. Yeah, I'm still here.
So, is anything you want to say before we get out of here? I want to let you lead us out of here, Miss Angela.
You end us off. We all been running our mouth.
Well, I enjoyed the program. Quite enlightening. I disagree on several points, but there'll be another time, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's got to be more to be clarified with these things, but we have to have these conversations. Yeah, and I'm glad we did it this way.
That's the problem.
People might have thought that they thought we were going to get on here and probably call each other names, and that's not what I'm. When I be trying to tell people, let's talk about this, I'm not into that part of it. You should know me better.
It's not productive.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why I took the invitation, because I already know what time it is with me and you. And like I hope some people jumped on. I probably should have did a little more, but I'm a marketer, so I'm a hype it up like that. But we're gonna get on here and be civil. You feel me? People. Right. I got a little Trump in it.
You gotta sell the fight.
Yeah. I got a little Trump and Floyd in me like that. That's that Trump and Floyd energy. You know what I'm saying? But then you say good fight. You know what I'm saying? Just to get people.
It's respect after. But hey, I just want to say one thing though, because the whole position that I wanted us to show from my side was just because somebody support Trump do not mean they hate themselves. Do not mean they hate their community, or it doesn't mean that they're uneducated and they just some type of groupie. Like that rhetoric is crazy. You can tell that we've done our research and we really care. We just ain't out here talking about no YouTube videos and no goofy shit. We talking.
It's the best I've seen.
I respect that. I appreciate that, because
it's the best I've seen.
We want people to be informed. Yeah, we ain't telling nobody what to do. We just breaking it down from an autonomous perspective. You do what you want to do, but just make sure you can live with that. You know what I'm saying? And this to everybody.
I can respect that. Y'all did y'all thing, because y'all brought the information that y'all said is what's important to you. Most times it's not that. It's just, we hate the brown people coming across.
Yeah, we're idol worshiping.
Right. Yeah. And we love Trump and his personality.
I don't care about none of that. Right. We don't care about Trump. I don't care. Listen, I tell y'all right now, I ain't like Obama, and I don't care about no Trump. I like that Trump ruffled them white folk feathers a little bit, and
Yeah,
some black
that's
folk
cute.
that's
He
in the
Rick
house.
Flair. That's what
And
he
it make me
supposed to
feel
do.
like
He like,
he like Joker.
whoa.
He like
Yeah.
Joker. You know what
He
I'm
a
saying?
rebel.
He make everybody be a little ruffled. And I like seeing how these people move when people get ruffled. Like you get to see some shit. But outside of that entertainment of that part of him, I already know what I am standing on before he came about or Obama came about. I tell him speaking. So I'm not caught up in idol worship. You hear me? As
No, of course.
Yahshua HaMashiach and people say Christ said, you know, give on to Caesar what is Caesar. Today we say give to the United States and the IRS what you got to give them, or they're gonna come see you type shit, right? So in this situation, we got to understand how we plan ourselves in the game, in this, and I'm saying metaphorically. And
No,
hey,
absolutely.
I'm gonna give on to
One
what's
thing.
that, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
be still saying what I'm saying about what's gonna benefit our ethnic group that is at the bottom of the economic situation in this situation of what we're talking about.
Where you at, Monte? Specifically in Louisiana, if I may add.
I'm from Louisiana. I live in Georgia right now, but I'm outside of Macon.
Okay, but so this is what I want to say. This is an amazing conversation to have for the edification of people that don't get into this like this, to hear from people that's educated.
Yeah.
But what I would like to do with brothers like yourself is in our local communities, I would like for us to attack the commissions. It ain't but 5 to 7 people that run cities, right? And it's a lot cheaper to deal with them individuals. So for instance, in a city like Lauderhill, let me just give you an example. It's a minority majority city, meaning there are more black folks here than anybody, and the whole commission is black.
Yeah.
So if you can do something like reparations in Evanston, Illinois, where the majority of the population is white and the majority of the commission is white, why can't we do that in a majority minority city? It only takes a little money and a little organizing, and these conversations that we having at the national level that get convoluted when we trying to figure out where the FEMA money going, what well, we can get our ass right here in our local communities and say, this what the fuck we need in terms of X, Y, and Z, right down the street that affect
I'm in
me.
agreement with that.
So I really want to start having those community conversations where we can move like that where we are. And so right now in Fort Lauderdale, I would like to do that. And wherever you are, Monte, I would like to help you.
I come out there. Back note, yeah.
So wherever
we
you
get
at,
around. Come on now, you know.
wherever it is, bro. I'm just saying this needs to be the blueprint.
Every city, you're right. Every black area needs to be the same
let's create that idea, because now we got conservative thought, we got moderate thought, we got progressive thought, we got all that in the space to say what can we do common sense wise in our local communities, where we talking literally maybe $500,000, because you can. If bad money can make politicians do bad things, good money can make them do the same. They only moving with the money. Correct. So if you created a PAC, or you start donating dollars and saying this is what we want, this is what we need, they're gonna do the exact same thing they do following behind that bad money. And so this is my perspective to organize and say what's the agenda in these cities as a blueprint, and attack them and understand, because we can go right on Open Secrets or Ballotopia and see how much money they raised for their last campaign.
Right. Yeah.
For sure, that's Aboriginal Wall Street talk, B.
That's
why I'm gonna invite you back for that.
Yeah. So although we may agree at the federal level, that's
sure.
why I even told you, man, fuck all that. I know there's gonna be some place of agreement where we can get down and dirty and actually do some work. Now, again, this is for the edification of the people to talk like this. Correct. But it's also for the edification of the people to get in the groundwork and do some tangible things to show them what's possible. Because if I can see a white progressive man in Evanston, Illinois, get reparations based on cannabis tax and real estate tax and get it passed and legally and start doing it to get it sued and be said to be unconstitutional, I can definitely get some niggas in the hood that's going to the commission for power and things of that nature to do the exact same thing. It's just going to take some organizing and some pressure.
Yeah, and talking, letting them know what's what.
Hey, and that's why when I hear a lot of people that even attack me, some people that know me very well, I'm gonna say to them, you heard tonight, and I can go into more detail, but I don't attack you for your position. And y'all jumped on me, and you know I could fight. You know what I'm saying? I throw hands. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I ain't y'all also know I ain't stupid either for y'all that be coming at me too. You just know I might be attacking. I think an idol worship thing that's tied to a certain group who's just been so, last six generations tied to a certain political stance that you're just used to giving them something that really ain't tangible enough for our communities to put it in generational wealth standpoint, Aboriginal Wall Street speaking. So I think if they can do things for other groups, and that's from a sexual standpoint, a gender standpoint, and other ethnic groups, foreign and here, then they definitely can do something for our folk on a general standpoint for the foundational families. Not even black folks, I said families, people that have families, housing, and all the things they need in their communities to be successful and to aggregate powernomics, as Dr. Clark Anderson speaks about. These things are not being given to us.
I got that idea from Dr. Clark Anderson.
I know you did.
He was on point with that.
Get out of here.
Buying the politician. I got that idea from him.
Listen, man, that's why I say, B, we're going to talk about it more.
Yeah, bro, that's what I'm saying.
Thank you.
And that was the only thing I was saying in terms of some of the arguments we be having. I understand where y'all at with the status and all that. But I be saying, where can we find commonality? Because maybe I ain't on the status like that, but maybe I could be an ally to get you what you want. But if we say things a certain way, we turn people off. And all I'm saying is we got to come from a perspective to understand we are greater together than we are apart. You know what I'm saying? Especially those that are like-minded.
Out of one, we come many, and that's what we got to do right now. So
absolutely.
I'm gonna let you take it out of here, man. I want to be. I know we've been. Hey, because of you, B. You see, we've been going 3 hours. This is one of the longest.
We ain't never went this long.
On Tuesday.
Bro, my bad.
I ain't gonna lie. So,
my bad.
No, but it's intriguing because I know people want to hear this type of conversation, and they listening. So shout out to everybody that's live with us on Tuesday. You know, I know y'all about to vote. Y'all got a couple more days left.
I'm gonna go leave it out on that, then, bro.
So, well, go ahead, then. Tap in. Appreciate y'all.
See y'all Sunday. Conversation. Y'all see, we always about having an honest conversation with whoever. This ain't about attacking nobody. This is just about getting the facts and encouraging everybody to be involved and be confident in whatever your decision is, because you know you did the research and you can stand behind it. That's the autonomous way. You know what I'm saying? So this your homeboy with the news. We had Brandon come through. We had Mark, Miss Angela, and Mac. So hey, look, I'm probably gonna tap in with y'all next Tuesday. We might go live for the results till I get sleepy. You hear me? And then we'll go on dip. But y'all let us know what y'all think in the comments. Make sure y'all tag y'all people. Have this discussion with your own people if you still on
with your family.
Right? Yeah, man, talk about it. Don't be scared.
Don't be scared.
If you want to support Trump, say that. If you want to support Kamala, say that. But guess what? Be able to talk about your policy and not your feelings, or else ain't nobody gonna respect what you saying.
That's real. We in America today. We can't do that.
Exactly. Well, let's get together on that local plan though. At some point,
we're gonna tap in soon. B. Appreciate you.
So y'all be safe.
All right, y'all. Peace.
Niggas the top 5 lister, double S drifter, separate sipping, and you know I came with it if she cute with it.
Yo.
Start to feel alone. I just play your voice loud that I say before things change. Now I read the message you sent, trying to tune out when you say I know you love me, but you should just forget about us.